Hey friends, no mic stand, can't be bothered. Anyways, originally I had this kind of like dramatic opening about cults and bad things in a similar vein, but upon a rewatch of that video, it was just completely tonally dissonant from the rest of it, so you're getting this instead. You may notice that this video is very patchwork. I change outfits and hair colors and hair lengths a lot, and the microphone quality is all over the place despite the fact that it is the same microphone every time. That's because I'm an idiot, and I was just not close enough to the microphone sometimes. Other times you may notice that I'm cutting in to clarify something or to fill in gaps. That's because I don't want to be misunderstood, and sometimes in the moment I'm just stupid and I skip things. That's the state of this video, and there's not much that I can do about that, and there's not much that I want to do about that, so that's that. Also, I just want to let you know that just because I didn't really enjoy this show doesn't mean that nobody should. I say a lot of things in a pretty matter-of-fact way, and that's just kind of how I talk. That doesn't mean that I'm right or that I think everything I say is a fact. My opinions and criticisms are fully open to debate. I am not the arbiter of morality or what makes something funny or a good show or good fiction, and if you liked Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and thought it was funny, that's completely okay. That's great even. You found something you liked, and that is awesome for you, although I'm surprised you clicked on this video. Just because I thought something was questionable or bad, just plain bad or stupid or just not funny, doesn't mean you're stupid or a terrible person for enjoying yourself watching a TV show. It's a TV show. It was meant to entertain you. If you were entertained, that's fine. It's a show. All that matters is that we acknowledge when things have flaws. I'm gonna get into some cynical nitpicking in a second, but just so this transition makes sense, the idea I had originally was to cut from a sort of serious introduction to the idea of cults and kidnappings and things like that, and then to a summary of the show in question to illustrate what I view as a tonal disconnect between the premise of the show and the show itself. I cut that, but I'm just gonna warn you now, I do mention things like kidnapping, sexual, physical, and emotional abuse, cults, and things of that nature. It's no details, usually it's just by name. I don't go into a lot of detail, but even if the mention of that sort of thing is upsetting to you in any sort of context, this video may not be for you, and that's fine. These things, I don't mention them often, nor are they really the topic of the discussion for most of this video, but I allude to it a handful of times, and so that's your warning. If you click away, it won't hurt my feelings. These are very serious topics, and it's okay if you're sensitive to even the mention of something like that. But most of this video is just about a show that I didn't like that came out in like 2016, okay?
The sitcom Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt premiered on Netflix on March 6th, 2015. It got 4 seasons and it ended on January 25th of 2019. It stars Ellie Kemper as Kimmy Schmidt, a 29-year-old woman who was kidnapped at age 14 by a cult leader who manipulated and lied to her and 3 other women that the apocalypse had occurred and that they were the only people left on Earth inside of an underground bunker. Now, I didn't mean to imply earlier that Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt treats the experience that Kimmy and the other women went through as something funny. No doubt in the text and tone of the show, this was traumatizing and horrific for these women, and our main character Kimmy has lasting psychological damage from this experience. And I would like to make it clear that the show doesn't think her trauma is funny. This is all contrasted, however, with the show's tone and dialogue when it comes to the other woman's experience, the things that happen in the bunker, the things that the Reverend says and does when he's on trial. These events are depicted with a tone of silliness, goofiness, and absurdity. I won't be specific about these events because we haven't really spoken about the show's content quite yet, but as you watch, I think you should keep in mind what I've said and compare it to some of the real-life stories that Kimmy's story is based on. Executive produced by Tina Fey and some other guy whose history I know nothing about. This show is obsessed with strange and quite frankly unfunny racial humor, starring actors for whom I have no great love for, and headed off with a theme song that I hate and that reeks of mid-2010s YouTube. With that, I'm going to hand it off to the version of me that recorded season 1's presentation several weeks ago. So if I look different and if the framing's different, it's because I recorded that one before this and I figured out a better way to set up my microphone. I've set up a better way to read my script because reading it off my phone, where's my phone? Reading it off my phone it just came off as very like haphazard and unplanned. And I just didn't prepare it well enough. So I'm gonna hand this off to Lily from 3 weeks ago and then change my shirt so that it looks like it's a different day. But you and I both know that it's not. This show starts off with a theme song that is like one of those YouTube remix songs that I know everybody loves to like be obsessed with for however long they're popular, and they're all made by the same guys. It's always the Gregory brothers. It's always Shmo. So episode 1, Kimmy Goes Outside. Every single one of these episodes is named Kimmy Does Something! And it's a level of enthusiasm that felt like it was a kid's show. This show often feels like a kid's show, even though it's not. And it like lacks any like maturity for an adult show, but it also is like a little too edgy to be a kid's show. It's very annoying. I'll get into this later, but I remember thinking like every single time there's like a romance aspect to this show, none of the actors have any chemistry, and I'm sitting there thinking like, well, what makes it different? And then I think about Community and how some of those characters have chemistry, and I'm like, well, Community's an adult show. Wait, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is for adults too. Why is it bad? This is not a kid's show. You can have actors that have chemistry. It's just weird. It just all feels so childish. And I get that it's because Kimmy's supposed to be in this sort of like state of arrested development, which is a better show. It's supposed to be like she's kind of stuck in age 14, but it feels like all the characters are stuck at age 14. It feels like the show is stuck at age 14. It feels like I'm stuck at age 14 watching it. I hate it. Okay, Kimmy Goes Outside. We start with Kimmy and 3 other women dressed in like those classic like cult clothes, because this show doesn't have a single original thought or idea when it comes to world building. These are just the classic like women in a cult clothes. I'm trying to think of like a good example of like a real life cult, because all I can think of is like, I think that's what they look like in Midsummer. I've never seen Midsummer. Midsommar? Did Jonestown do that? I don't know. I'll look it up later. I'll flash it on the screen here. And if I Hi, I'm editing. I did some research. I've Googled some things. Okay, so the dresses and hair are directly lifted from Warren Jeff's polygamous cult. Warren Jeff is a bad dude who was convicted of a lot of crimes that he should, rot away for. Real bad guy. Are we surprised? No. I think everything from the hair to the outfits to even, the polygamous thing seems very similar to the mole woman situation. Just want to quickly mention something here while we're on this topic. So in 2015, Ellie Kemper stated in an interview published by The Wrap that Kimmy Schmidt is based on Elizabeth Smart, or at least her performance is based on her. So Elizabeth Smart was 14 when she was kidnapped in 2003, and she was subjected to horrific abuse from her captors, both of whom can rot in hell. I'm glad they're in jail or dead or whatever happened to them. I don't care. She was rescued 9 months later, and today she's a woman and children's safety activist and a genuinely incredible role model from what I can tell. Ellie Kemper, when reading Smart's memoir, said that she admired her optimism during her ordeal and wanted to channel that through to Kimmy. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. She said it in different words. So, to Kemper, Kimmy's sort of childlike behavior is meant to represent a persevering, perhaps unbreakable even, sense of childlike wonder for the world around her. That's good, and I think that that's a nice sentiment, but to me, she comes across as naive and pretty inherently dumb, and I think that that's what they wanted Kemper to bring to the table when they cast her, honestly. But it just bothers me because Kimmy's at her worst, weakest, and most annoying when she's acting like a toddler. There's Kimmy, a woman with braces. Kimmy doesn't have braces. Kimmy, a separate woman who has braces named Cindy, another white woman, her name's Gretchen, and an older Hispanic woman. I think she's Hispanic, maybe she's Mexican. I'm gonna say Hispanic because that's a lot more vague, and I don't know if they actually give us an actual, like, nationality for her. She's just, like, vaguely Hispanic. Her name's Donna Maria. They are celebrating Christmas and established that they believe they're in the bunker because of the apocalypse. A SWAT team breaks in and frees them. They leave. It's actually not Christmas. They counted wrong. And then we hear the theme song sort of amp up. I wrote down that I hate whoever writes these captions because 5 years ago when Donna Maria spoke Spanish, the captions translated it because what she said was important. Now it just says speak Spanish. I'm going to go to your house and steal shit. They actually do start translating what she says later on. But in this first clip, they say something. They're on the news and the guy goes, Donna Maria, so you just didn't learn English at all throughout the 15 years you were in the bunker. And she says something along the lines of like, oh, they didn't learn to speak Spanish, what the f***, or something like that. Yeah. Alright. I don't know why they didn't translate this first part, because it was funny. Why didn't they learn to speak Spanish? Like, even a little bit, you know? The other women say they want to go back to their lives in Durnsville, Indiana, which is where they were kidnapped. But Kimmy says she wants to stay in New York because she really doesn't like being seen as a victim. She doesn't like people looking at her with pity. She doesn't like people treating her like she's some victim. She doesn't want it taking over her whole life. So she's like, if I'm in New York, people won't recognize me as well, because I'm in a sea of horrible, horrible people who only think about themselves. Jonathan, please stop. I don't know if it's just as actress, because it seems like, okay, it seems like she genuinely does just kind of talk with her teeth closed sometimes. Johnny, what are you doing? But it feels like in this scene where she's talking to Kimmy outside the bus in the first episode, it seems like she might have had a hard time speaking in these braces. Johnny, you have a big...
If you're really gonna do this, take some of my mole fund money. I mean, a pop here's like $5. Also, I'm your secret Santa.
Johnny, you have a big knot on the back of your spine here, but I feel like if I cut it off for you, you're gonna have a bald spot there. And I feel like that... No! No. I'm so sorry. Anyway, it feels like there's ADR here. It feels like she had a hard time speaking. But then later on, it felt like maybe it was just her, the way she speaks. She speaks with her teeth closed. Jonathan? Johnny? I love you. That's not where you rub your face. That's not where you rub your face. Because it picks it up, and it actually... Okay. He's just gotta make sure it's all... Okay, Johnny, please. No. Okay. So we meet Jacqueline. I do think she's funny. I do... I remember this now. There's a scene where she pulls like a Fuji water. I don't think it actually is in the show, but like it's that shape, you know what I mean? It's like a cube. She pulls one out of the fridge and she offers one to Kimmy. And then Kimmy says no. Instead of putting it back in the fridge, she just turns and throws it in the trash.
Do you want a water? No, thanks. Okay.
Like a full bottle of water, she just throws it in the trash. Jacqueline's genuinely funny, just because like she is a very good example of like just a very clueless, like elitist rich woman, but she's also very kind, and I like her. Kimmy meets Titus and Lillian is because Lillian is the landlord of an apartment building, specifically of Titus's apartment, who it seems like he's the only person who lives in this apartment, which is underground. It's weird. Anyway, Lillian's like, oh, Titus needs a roommate. Also, he doesn't know that I put up a roommate ad, and he's like pissed at her, but he doesn't pay his rent because he's like broke. Titus is like, no, I don't want a roommate. You don't even have a job. I don't even know who you are. What the fuck? Like, because obviously Kimmy doesn't have anything. So they're getting in a fight again, and he goes up and he walks up to his apartment, and there's a bunch of like small furniture, and he goes, Lillian, why is my doll furniture on the curb? And she's like, it's the only thing I can carry. And they get in a fight. And then at one point during this fight, he goes,
Lillian, I helped you take a shower once.
Hey, guys.
I don't know exactly what Kimmy says, but she says, you know, you're the, like, whoever person I've ever met. And he goes, I envy you. I've never been able to meet me. And he's so real for that, because I'd love to meet me. I think I'd find myself annoying, but also enchanting. When Kimmy says she'll pay and she has a shit ton of tax rebate money, so she's got a lot of cash. And so she's like, do you want to go out and celebrate something? And he's like, no, I'm broke. And she goes, I'll pay. And he goes, I'm going out. And it's not funny. It's just annoying. I find this annoying. It's not funny. It's very 2015. Cringe. Anyways, so Kimmy got a job as Jacqueline's personal assistant or something. And the tutor there, like her son Buckley's tutor, is vaguely attractive. I don't know if that's who she's with at this club. It's just a tall white man. I can't tell, whatever. She's at the club, and then she realized somebody stole her backpack, and he's like, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. She goes, no, I need to find my backpack, and then she clocks the security guard, and then they throw her out. And then she finds her backpack, it's empty, she lost all her fucking money, it's so sad. And she was late for something with Jacqueline, and I guess she got fired. Also, I forgot to mention that Jacqueline has a son named Buckley. I did mention it now, but I didn't write it down in my notes. And Kimmy caught him stealing candy twice, and that's how she met Jacqueline. Buckley is
vaguely important to the story. No, he exists. How about that? I don't really care about Buckley. He's an annoying little however-year-old boy with a bowl haircut, and that's a terrible name, but it is a classic rich woman's son name, so I'll give it a pass. I wrote, if Kimmy doesn't get a new outfit, I'm going to scream. She didn't change outfits for the entirety of the first 2 episodes, and she's wearing the worst outfit I've ever seen. I hate it. It just looks bad on her. Like, these colors just look terrible on her. Titus finally tells Kimmy, like, you've got to go home. Like, she's like, I'm one of the Indiana mole women, and that's what they call the women who are in the bunker, the mole women. She tells him finally, and he goes, you gotta get out of here. I pulled up from Mississippi here in 1998, and I was cute once too, like you. I auditioned for The Lion King on Broadway. And Kimmy goes, you were in The Lion King on Broadway? And he goes, yes, but also, no.
For The Lion King.
You were in The Lion King on Broadway?
Yes, except I was not.
Kimmy's going home. She's got like a bag of groceries or something, and the milk leaks everywhere. The bag of milk just don't buy milk. Why are you traveling with milk in your bag? She's looking in her little bag, and at one point she finds like a little cross stitch that Cindy, one of the mole women with the braces, gave her, and it's such a fucked up little map. Like it just looks wrong. It looks like something I would have made. She gets she flashes back to when she was in the bunker, and basically this is like a linchpin of a lot of the flashbacks. But at one point she found a dead rat, or maybe an alive rat. She found a rat in the vents, and she was like, so we're not the last living things on Earth, and she holds it up, and its balls are huge. She resolves to stay in New York after thinking, and she sees the milk and the fucked up cross-stitch map, and thinking about the rat with the big balls, and she smiles to herself, and then she goes, I'm gonna go find Titus. Titus goes on the street in like a knockoff Iron Man costume selling, or like handing out flyers for an arcade, so she finds him, and he calls her Amelia Bedelia. Kimmy lives in New York in Titus's apartment with him now. Her money was stolen. She needs to get a job. Episode 2, Kimmy gets a job. That was all the first episode. The Spanish was finally translated when it wasn't Donna Maria who spoke, it was Jacqueline's maid, Vera. She calls her
Aquí una chica que se parece a la de Wendy's old-fashioned hamburger.
Kimmy gets her job back. I didn't realize at the time that she even lost her job in the first place, but I guess she did. Jacqueline feels like there's a lot more to her than meets the eye. I think she's one of the first characters that is likable and has depth. I like Jacqueline. You know what I mean? Like, she's genuinely likable, which is strange because I feel like I'm not supposed to like her at first, but I do. And maybe it's my bias remembering what I liked about her, but she was one of the most memorable characters of the whole show, and it's because there was so much to her, but also because there was things about her that I wasn't sure about, the, you know, racism. We'll get to it. Jacqueline has a bitchy stepdaughter named Xanthippe. Insane name, Xanthippe, Xanthippe. I don't know what name that is. I didn't know that was a name. Crazy name. Buckley's birthday is soon, so Kimmy says, you know, what if I plan the whole birthday? Will that give me a second chance to work for you, Jacqueline? And she's like, fine. And then she sets up all the party shit, and it's like a superhero themed party, and Jacqueline sees it, and she goes, this party... Johnny? Jacqueline goes, this party is a disaster, and then she refers to the piñata as a quote-unquote Mexican candy animal, but also, like, I do think Jacqueline is a good person and like a very clear and direct person. She's very calm about the fact that she's mad. She doesn't start screaming at Kimmy. She goes, this is not gonna work. This is a disaster. And she's not like very clear, and she wasn't really that clear in the first place, but she does go, was I not clear? Is this my fault? And she doesn't seem to be doing it to be derisive. She's genuinely asking. And Kimmy goes, no, it's my fault. I can do better. But it's like, she wasn't clear. And Kimmy clearly doesn't know what the fuck a fancy kid's birthday is supposed to look like. There's a scene where Titus is on a subway. He just got back from Ray's costume world or whatever, and he was trying to return it, but the guy said it was damaged.
And so he's on the subway with it, and then a mariachi band comes up to him and goes, hey, we're performing this train, you can't do that. And he goes, man, I'm just here because I can't get the deposit back. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. And they went, did you rent it from Ray's Costume World? And he's like, he said it was damaged. And they went, they did the same thing to us. And I know these costumes aren't damaged. My mother cleans them every night, right before she tucks us into the bed we all share. I don't know why it made me laugh so hard, but just the concept of them all sharing a bed like the Powerpuff Girls is so funny. It was funny. Anyways, Titus realizes it's a scam. This guy does it to everybody. And Kimmy fixes up the party, and she's determined to ground Xanthippe for drinking. I didn't mention this earlier, sorry. The way she meets Xanthippe is like she runs downstairs with her bitchy friend, and she's like, I don't know, got alcohol poisoning or something. And Kimmy's like, oh, I know how to make people throw up really quickly. So she like puts together a concoction, the girl throws up, she's fine. And then she's like, well, why are you guys drinking? You're underage. And they're like, what are you gonna do about it, bitch? Something. Anyway, she's determined to ground Xanthippe because she shouldn't be doing that or something. And the maid, Vera, calls her Hamburger Girl, which is funny. Actually, she calls her Chica Hamburguesa, which I think roughly translates to Hamburger Girl. Whatever, it's funny. Titus and the other off-brand mascot costume people are banding together to stand up to their costume renter guy. That's like the B-plot. I just kind of wrote that down. I should have just put it all together, but I'm not going to do that. Kimmy is trying to make the party work for Buckley, but he's a little upset. And we continuously get like really uninteresting flashbacks to her time in the bunker that aren't really that important to the story. I'm mostly going to be skipping them. They're really just not that important. Like, it's most of the time they're there to explain why Kimmy says something, but when Kimmy says something, usually it's not that important to the story for me to write it down. Jacqueline's husband still hasn't left London, and she won't let Buckley open presents until he gets there. She's really upset, and Titus finally gets the costume guy to give them their security deposits back and take the costumes back because he's like, you know, you could get sued for intellectual property or whatever. Jacqueline says her husband, Julian Voorhees, isn't coming. She's mad that the party was a quote-unquote catastrophe and Buckley's being a brat. Jacqueline really wanted her husband to show up to the party, and she's really upset about it. And so Kimmy's like, I gotta do something about this. So she asks Titus to get the costume back. She's like, I've got a plan. And he goes, but I already did something today. Which is funny. Kimmy calls out Xanthippe lying about some, like, summer beach home boyfriend or whatever. She got it out of a babysitter's club story. So she blackmails her about the lie, and like she threatens to tell her shitty friends about it. So she finally is able to ground her. Jacqueline starts crying. Julian's been gone for 2 months, and she's really upset about that. And Jacqueline says Kimmy's her best friend. They met 3 days ago? I don't know. Kimmy's still wearing the same fucking outfit. Episode 3, Kimmy goes on a date. Jacqueline has a flashback and is revealed to be a white-passing Native American woman. I think they say later she's Lakota Sioux. Her mom is some woman I don't recognize, but she seems to be Native American. Her dad is the wheelchair guy from Twilight, who I think was Jacob's dad. I don't know. He was in the Twilight movies, that's all I know. She's hiding that from others. She's pretending to be white. She's cagey about it with, you know, not the babysitter. What the fuck is he? He's the tutor. The tutor is into Kimmy. I guess he's cute, but he's a little simpy. Just a little bit of a simp kind of guy. And Xanthippe is suspicious of Kimmy, so she wants to figure out her deal. So in episode 4, Kimmy goes to the doctor. Kimmy keeps, like, she says something and Titus goes, stop calling this the future. Cindy got her braces off. She's really pretty. Titus evidently sent Cindy a letter from Kimmy, and she calls her, but Kimmy doesn't really want to talk to her. But Titus is like, you're stressing me out. You bite my nails. Kimmy realizes she doesn't need to push the other mole women away, and she calls Cindy back and tells her she would love to have her come visit her in New York. Episode 5, Kimmy kisses a boy. A construction guy catcalls Kimmy and then realizes that maybe he's being disrespectful to women, and that's bad. And it's funny. Don't forget him. We'll see him again. There's this part where Kimmy says she was like an older sister to Cindy and the bunker. What clip was it? I don't know. I'll play the clip. Apparently it made me laugh.
And the imaginary ball. Thank you, Gretchen.
I didn't give it to them.
There were side tubes.
Sometimes I feel guilty.
The tutor that likes Kimmy, his name is Charles. I wrote, I don't like Kimmy, and I don't really know what that was in reference to, but I don't really like Kimmy that much. Kimmy called this random guy a honky, and then we realized it's Cindy's boyfriend, Brandon. And I do think he's cute. Kimmy asks Titus not to ask Cindy any questions about the bunker, and he's like bursting to ask, and he finally does, and Kimmy is mad about it. And then Titus meets Brandon, and he quite quickly assesses that the man is gay. Kimmy learns that Cindy's been using this mole woman thing for pity, and people just give her things, like a job or a gay boyfriend. Kimmy picks up on the fact that Brandon seems to be using Cindy slash with her out of pity, and he's definitely gay, and Kimmy calls him out, and he admits to being with her out of pity. He actually broke up with a guy he really liked to be with her. Oh. Kimmy's going steady with Charles, I guess. They kissed again. I don't know. He's kind of cute. I don't hate him. There's a clip where Titus is talking to Brandon or whatever, and he's trying to call him out, and then Cindy walks in. She goes, "What are you guys talking about?" And they go, "Sports," at the same time, and it was funny. Brandon did admit to Titus that he's gay. Charles calls Kimmy and says he loves her and wants to go to the quote-unquote next level. I'm pretty sure he's just in a video game call is what I wrote down, and yes, he was. Brandon proposes, and it's clear people have been lying to Cindy to protect her and make her happy because they pity her, but then it's revealed that Cindy actually knows that Brandon is gay, and she's happy regardless. She just likes the fake things that people give her. She's happy with that. Okay. I wrote, "Nar, Kimmy's being weird, she misunderstood it, I hate it here." He was on the call with his friend Jeremy, playing a video game, and he also said "I love you" to him at the end, which is kind of cute. I actually love that. I just love it. I love that he's just like so like besties with his bro that he loves it. Anyway, I wrote Charles would be so in love with me. I could be his manic pixie dream girl. He would. When Kimmy realizes that Charles was not talking to her, it was a butt dial, and he was talking to his friend about the video game, she goes, "Well, I did think it was weird when you said troll the respawn, Jeremy, but I thought it was a cool new way of saying goodbye." We saw that entire phone conversation from pickup to hang up. When did he say this? When would she have heard this but we didn't? There's no time skips in this call, if I remember correctly at least. You can't just say that they said something during a time when we would have seen them say it. I don't know what... It's funny that she keeps saying troll or respawn, Jeremy. That is funny, but what does that mean? I'm a gamer girl, right? I don't know what this is supposed to mean. I'm not sure what game they're supposed to be playing because I don't think they show it, but it seems more or less like they're playing some sort of like Bed Wars game, like a Minecraft Bed Wars game, or that one knockoff called Overwatch. Don't correct me, I'm a gamer girl, I know everything about video games. Like, what does troll the respawn Jeremy mean? What does troll the respawn mean? So, based on, what he says, Johnny, it seems like what he's trying to say is, are you licking my leg? Okay, one of two things. One, he's saying, camp at the respawn to kill them where they respawn so that they can't get to our base, right? Or it means go to their specific respawn point and, I don't know, destroy it? I don't know. The thing is, that's not what troll means. Like, I can't think of a single context when troll would make sense for that. Troll, to put it quite generally, I know there's like a long history of what troll means on the internet as a verb, but troll generally means to taunt. So, you can't taunt a respawn. What the fuck does that even do? Does he mean troll the respawn as in, like, taunt them at the respawn to distract them? I don't know. You can't just mash words together and pretend like it makes sense, Tina. Did you ask a single gamer? Like, what does she think troll means? Did she just put a random internet word that she associates with gamers and assume it could make a sentence? I don't fucking know. I don't know. Anyways, fuck you, Tina. Moving on. The construction worker from earlier basically just comes out to Titus on the street
And Titus calls him a quote-unquote tasty little Bob the Builder. It's kind of funny, but I think that this would have been funnier if it was over the course of multiple episodes, because it happens kind of quickly, and I think it'd be funnier if he was continuously catcalling Kimmy over the course of like a few episodes, and then one day, like, she goes, "Would you fucking stop it?" or something, or maybe Titus catches him, and he goes, "Oh, maybe I am wrong." And it's like a slow process of that, and then one day he comes out to Titus. I think that would be a funnier build-up of that, because then we would get more of like a background character that became more of a recurring character. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be interesting? That doesn't work for Tina. Tina's bad at writing good, funny shows. Kimmy decides she's gonna get an education because she only has a middle school education. The Breakfast Club joke isn't funny, Tina. I get that you watched Community and you got jealous that you didn't executive produce that show, but it's actually because you suck. So that's the end of the episode. Episode 6, Kimmy goes to school. Kimmy, well, she goes back to school. As she walks in, Titus goes, "I love you, don't get lice."
I love you. Don't get lice.
She meets a guy named Dong, tells Kimmy that her name means penis in his language. We'll get to that. We'll get to that, because don't forget that. Episode 7, Kimmy goes to a party. Jacqueline confronts her husband on his plane in Beijing, and evidently Julian has a foot fetish, and he's very emotionally manipulative of Jacqueline. He denies cheating. Jacqueline and Kimmy listen in on Julian's phone conversation with a Japanese woman named Yuko. It's implied he's sleeping with her. Jacqueline decides on a plan, a party to humiliate and expose Julian. Kimmy asks Titus to sing at the party, and this is the second time it's implied that Titus was married to a woman at one point in Mississippi. Titus gives Kimmy a makeover for the fancy party. I like her hair, the way he styled it, but I hate this dress that they've put on her. I don't remember what the dress was, but I hated it. And I remember the dress. It was like this weird, like, one sleeve thing. It was so tacky. It was not like a cute, like, fancy dress. It was just ugly, and it was like a huge, like, turquoise statement necklace. I don't know. Anyway, Zan's being a hater again. Jacqueline looks nice in the dress she's wearing. Her plan is to put talcum powder on the floor so that when Julia and Yoko do some foot play at the table, they'll have baby powder all over their clothes. Yes, that will definitely work. Now that we've seen a visual of what the plan will be, definitely we'll just see that again. Totally. Unfortunately for Jacqueline, Yoko is beautiful. Yuko is beautiful. Or the woman we assume is Yuko that comes up and greets Julian. Titus realizes there's a Broadway producer there and tries to impress him by belting Let It Go really loudly near him. The British guy is named Logan Beekman. Most of the time I just call him the British guy, I don't care. Zan is being a hater again, I guess. She keeps just going, "I'll figure you out, Kimmy," or whatever. And then Julian stands, there's actually no talc powder on his pants. Turns out Yuko is actually a Japanese robot. The Japanese woman is not named Yuko, nor is Julian having an affair with either of them. It's just a business thing. The robot gets him a drink before Jacqueline can and sings before Titus does. And so they're both kind of like mad at Yuko for like taking their jobs and their roles and this whole dichotomy thing. That's not what that word means. Anyway, the British guy invites Kimmy elsewhere, but he finds out she's not rich because Xanthippe is being a hater. He decides he's more into rich people than Kimmy, I guess. So Jacqueline is jealous of Yuko and throws a drink at her, destroying her instantly. It's a really fragile robot. If one drink being thrown at it destroys it, that's not how robots work. Tina, this isn't funny like Community is. This is a very Community-esque joke. I don't know how to explain it. This joke feels like something that Dan Harmon would write, which I don't like Dan Harmon, by the way. I kind of feel like he's kind of not the best person in real life, but he is a better writer than Tina Fey. It's a bad movie reference. I don't even remember what reference it is. It's a reference to a movie that I've never seen. The guy is not a Broadway producer that Titus thought he was. He actually runs a themed restaurant with spooky themed singing waiters. Titus, I guess, is a singing waiter. Now, I guess I've been to a singing restaurant in New York, and I have a brief story to tell you because I'm still mad about this. When I was in my junior year of high school, my marching band went to New York. We went to this, like, singing restaurant, I guess. I don't remember what it was called. The waiters wore a lot of blue, that's all I remember.
We had reservations at a certain time, and we waited an hour and 45 minutes past that time, and it was really cold out. So we were out there in the freezing cold, and I was feeling very grumpy. I was with Maya. She was nauseous or something. She felt really sick. I don't remember exactly why, but she felt really sick, and our band director had already told us we wouldn't really be able to choose where we sat there. You're just gonna be like next to the people in line. So try to orient yourselves however you need to be where you are in line. So we did that. We were kind of in a big sort of grape-shaped line. I distinctly remember at one point while we were out there, some woman came up to us and she went, "Oh, where are y'all from?" She didn't say, my impression of strangers is always a southern accent that doesn't work when the story's set in New York. But she came up to us and she was like, "Where are you guys from?" And we said, "Oh, we're from Georgia." And she goes, "Oh, Georgia on my mind." I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Anyway, finally we get inside. And we are stuck just at the table we passed by. I was already kind of mad about that because it was a booth. It was like a 4-seater booth, right? I'm next to Maya. Great, that's my best friend. Love her. She is no fun to be around at this moment because she feels sick. None of us are fun when we don't feel good. I don't blame her for that. She was nauseous. I think her head hurt. I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was the being outside in the cold. Maybe she hadn't eaten it a lot that day. I don't know. She felt sick. So she wasn't much fun to be around. And then I have these 2 jackasses sitting across from me who were sucking all the fun out of it, being little cynical pieces of shit. I don't remember their names. And so I was sitting there with Maya. They were only selling fried food there, so it's not like she could eat anything that would make her feel better. She just got a water. We were sitting there, and it was just not fun. It was not a fun time. A singing restaurant could be fun, but the only experience I have with one was when I had to sit there and deal with 2 grumpy little edgy high schoolers who tried to ruin it for me. Also, Yuko wakes up from the hole that Jacqueline buried her in and seems to be out for blood. The British guy shows up to Jacqueline's place and finds Kimmy, and he's like, "You don't know who I am, do you? Because you kept calling me Mr. Beaker," which she did. And he's like, "I thought you were pretending to be rich to like get something from me." And she was like, "No, I was just trying to fit in." And he's like, "Okay." And then I guess he's pursuing her. I don't know. Also, Julian's sleeping with Jacqueline and his shitty therapist. That's great. Episode 8, Kimmy is bad at math. Kimmy's study group won't show up to their study sesh, and Kimmy looks way better in dark purple. There's a scene where she has like a dark purple outfit on. It looks so much better on her. Jacqueline, I guess, is getting divorced. And then I wrote Princess Carolyn shows up in this episode, which I think she does. He's a Vietnamese immigrant in America. He mostly speaks in broken English. We'll get to Dong. We're gonna talk about Dong because I have problems with this character. I guess no divorce. Kimmy thinks the marriage is bad for Jacqueline, so she gets on Jacqueline's phone for whatever reason. I don't know. We don't see. Jacqueline wants more money. She's not gonna get a lot of money if they get a divorce, so she's like, whatever, we're not getting a divorce. Anyway, I wrote, why is this show obsessed with the Olsen twins being 4 people? Anyway, Titus tells Lillian that when he's on the streets dressed as a werewolf, he's like a singing werewolf guy, people treat him better because I guess they can't tell that he's black. This is a weird detail because I feel like you can still clearly see that he's a black man. So that doesn't work, but whatever. Dong is at Kimmy's place and Lillian's like, "Good for you, he's cute." And she's like, no, I'm going out with the British guy. Whatever. Now that Dong is a bit more relevant to the story, I think it's time to talk about something. And it's the Asian representation in this show. I don't really know why Tina Fey does this. I asked Maya what she thinks of the only Asian man in this show being named Penis and speaking broken English most of the time when this actor actually speaks like this in real life.
In Southern California. In college, I studied psychology because I just wanted to help people. But then psychology...
And she told me she found the joke name kind of fucked up because it just reduces the whole character to a joke, really. And the South Korean actor being kind of a not good casting choice, especially if him being a Vietnamese immigrant is so important to the story. Okay, I know you can say whatever you want on the internet, so, I can't exactly trust exactly everything this person's saying, but when I was looking into what actually Asian people thought of the show, I ran across a Reddit post from like 6 years ago where somebody said, "I've been watching the show and I got to the episode with Dong and all this stuff with him, and I'm Vietnamese and I find his portrayal really weird and offensive." I mentioned a few other things I don't want to mention, but I asked them, I was like, this has like been 6 years ago, so you might not respond, but I was like, I'm not a Vietnamese person. I don't know the culture. Is Dong an actual name? Like, is Dong a common Vietnamese first name? And I looked it up, and it was just weird because it just doesn't seem like it's a real name. And they went, not really. They were like, it's a word, kind of, I guess, but it's not a name. And I don't really think that they think it's a name either. They were like, I don't really think that they looked into it and found a name like that. I think that they just came up with it and it sounded like a Vietnamese name that's been anglicized, and it worked for a joke they wanted to make. Every single time somebody hears Dong's name, they make a penis joke, which is so funny, Tina, except that it's not. At one point, Kimmy goes,
Enough. Dong is a common Vietnamese name. No more jokes.
no it isn't! No it isn't, stop lying! Anyway, remember when I mentioned earlier when Dong said, to Kimmy, your name means penis in my language. Vietnamese. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Every single person I've seen talk about this, because I was looking into it, no, it doesn't. It does not mean penis in Vietnamese. The most, like, people were saying the closest thing that it could be related to is that there is a word, I think there's like a slang word for penis that I could not figure out how, like, where it was pronounced, but it's spelled C-H-I-M. I'm gonna say Shim, or something, and they were like, maybe that could possibly be what they're referring to, but generally what it is it's Tina Fey presenting to me Asian stereotypes on a big platter. You cannot present to me racial stereotypes, pretty offensive ones at that, and then go, here, look, I made you a satire. I saw people saying, like, well, it's turning a stereotype on its head because he's not, like, the like, minority comic relief. He's a love interest. Obviously he's a love interest. He's hot. What are we talking about here? This subverts nothing. My expectations would be more subverted if he wasn't a love interest. King Hong Lee is hot. Of course he's a love interest. That subverts nothing. Mimi Canassis is here, but I think I'm just gonna call her Princess Carolyn. She is Jacqueline's friend who just got a divorce. She's really sad about it. She's living a sad, sad life. That's what Kimmy was doing earlier when she was on Jacqueline's phone. She called her, and Jacqueline's like, but if I get divorced, I only get $12 million. That's so sad. Boo-hoo. Anyway, Kimmy sucks at math, and that cost Dong his job because she came up short because she didn't know how to make change during his deliveries for the restaurant he works for. I think this joke about Dong saying tooths and then Timmy saying, like, correcting him, like, going, no, it's teeth. This line where he goes, that's insane, is actually funny. I think these types of jokes where somebody doesn't speak English as a first language, it works better if you don't mock them for their struggling with it and you mock the language itself for how fucking stupid it is. The English language is really ridiculous sometimes. Dong seems to mostly struggle with plurals, and he struggles with plurals where the word actually changes vowel forms. And that's not easy because it doesn't even change in a consistent way. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And you can't even tell which words do what. Like, the plural of moose is not meese. It's just moose, I think. I don't even know. Kimmy, I guess, can suddenly do math and figures out that with interest on those $12 million that Jacqueline gets in the marriage, she can actually double it with investing or whatever. I don't know how she just magically got better at math. It doesn't make sense. Jacqueline goes, it's not really about the money, and she explains that her status as the woman married to Julian Voorhees might, like, go away, and then her life might be harder. Boo-hoo. Kimmy goes, you know, I'm one of the Indian animal women. I don't know why she tells her this. Anyway, he convinces Jacqueline. She's like, we're strong women's or whatever, girl boss. Dong is magically better at plurals. It doesn't feel like that happened naturally either, but Dong and Kimmy make up again. They got in a big fight. He said, I'm not talking to you anymore. And then they make up because he's like, wait, you made my English better or something. I don't know. He's better at plurals now, I guess. Anyway, weird handshake scene. They're friends again. Anyway, some rich white people, like, pull up to, like, in front of their house, and they go, oh, there's a British person here, look, this neighborhood's picking up, and then they see Titus, and they think he's a werewolf, but then his costume starts, like, melting off, and they run away from him. I get that it's a joke, that they treat him better as a werewolf than as a black man, but I don't think it makes sense that white people would just run away from a black man screaming like that, especially if they apparently thought he was Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh God, the werewolf had turned into Samuel L. Jackson!
Dong sees Kimmy with the British man, and he seems sad and jealous. I don't know. Episode 9. Kimmy has a birthday. Kimmy is turning 30, and she bought some alcohol, I guess. She implies that she was born on a roller coaster.
I know the exact minute I was born because it was my mom's lawsuit against the roller coaster.
And Titus lies to Kimmy and tells her that he wrote her a song. He did not do that. Fucking Delmar O'Donnell over here is like Kimmy's stepdad, I guess. He pulled up with an abrasive and uninterested girl to whom he refers as Kimmy's sister. Her mom married this dude while Kimmy was in the bunker, and then she ran off and she's gone, and he was the lead investigator on the case, I guess, but he didn't find her because he sucks. I don't know. I don't care about this character, and I don't like this actor. I don't think he's funny. Her mom had another daughter, like right after Kimmy went missing, I guess, named Kimmy, K-Y-M-M-I. Kimmy hates Kimmy, but also this girl's kind of a bad actress.
I hate you, Kimmy!
I remember when I first watched this show, I had that opinion, and I still think that I don't think she's a very good actress, but maybe I'll just blame the directing again. I love doing that. Kimmy hates Randy and seems neutral about Kimmy, so whatever. Logan sent Kimmy a dress and some shoes, and then there's an iPhone joke where he's like, you know, the new iPhone came out today, so our phones are about to self-destruct. Very funny. Very true. Tina probably still uses an iPhone anyways. Kimmy looks nice in this dress. It was a really pretty red dress. Titus is infatuated with a hunky guy from his work, but he hasn't seen his face, nor does he know his name. Dong built Kimmy a bike for her birthday. It was very sweet of him. Ellie Kemper looks really nice with straight hair and dark eye makeup. I feel like the makeup balances out her smile, because her smile is so huge that I feel like she needs some balance up top too. You know what I mean? Logan is late for the party, and it seems like he's really hesitant to pick up ice for her because he's an asshole. Also, Dong got ice for the party without Kimmy even asking, which was very sweet of him. Kimmy is annoying. I get why she hates Kimmy. I don't care. It's not really funny. Like, I don't know. I can't tell with this show whether it's supposed to be funny or frustrating sometimes, because 9 times out of 10, it's just frustrating. Randy and Titus are pissing Kimmy off. Actually, everyone is pissing Kimmy off at this birthday party. Logan got Kimmy a very nice necklace. Also, he took credit for the bike that Dong built, and Dong's really mad about that. I don't really care about Kimmy. Yeah, I get it. Your whole life was about Kimmy going missing. It's just not interesting. It's not an interesting conflict to watch, so I don't care. Everyone's fucking up Kimmy's birthday, and it's like the first real birthday she's had since she was 14, so it's not really fair for people to do that to her. The hunky guy at Titus's work actually turns out to be an ex-boyfriend of his. Also, Randy shot at a door. Whatever. Kimmy ran away. Dong is pissed that Logan took credit for the bike that he made. But Logan didn't even know he didn't get it because his assistant picked out the gifts for Kimmy. Logan and Dong are fighting now, which I think is interesting that they actually did research a real Vietnamese form of martial arts, because that seems like a little bit too much research for Tina, if we're being honest. Kimmy kicks everyone out. She's fucking pissed, and she's got a right to be. It's her birthday, and it's not really fair that people keep fucking up her birthday. Titus tells her, you know what, all of that was kind of normal for an adult birthday party. You had a normal adult birthday party. Your family pissed you off. You had men fighting over you, shit like that. Titus then realizes that he doesn't even have to write an original song because Kimmy doesn't know any music for the past 15 years. So he sings Katy Perry's Firework and says he wrote it. Also, Kimmy, like, criticizes the logic of the lyrics, which is kind of funny, I guess. It's not really executed well.
I wrote, I'd rather die than have someone sing in front of me, making eye contact without any backing music, like they're Rachel Berry in a universe where they don't have musicians who
have demonstrated time and again that they can, at the drop of a hat, play literally any song you can name.
Randy, I guess, is going through it on the streets. I don't fucking care. They find Kimmy at a fancy-ass Olive Garden. It's a long story why Kimmy knew she was there. Whatever, I'm not explaining it. Kimmy and Kimmy get along now because Randy sucks. And Kimmy breaks the locket that Randy gave her in half and gave her the little heart side with a picture of her in it, so they have a piece of each other, which is nice. I also don't fucking care about Kimmy's life. I really don't, which is weird and bad because the whole show is about that. So if I don't care about it, why am I still watching it to make this video? I wrote, hey, can we get back to Dong and how he deserves better? No? Episode end? Alright, the episode ends there. We don't get to hear about Dong or anything. Anyway, episode 10, Kimmy is in a love triangle. This episode actually opened by making me laugh, which is, you know, a great change of pace.
For the last 3 months has been, what's the internet? Who's that guy? What's Tilda Swinton? And I have told you, Tubes, the president, and no one knows.
Titus encourages Kimmy to enjoy the attention from having two men fight over her. And Logan brings her a dolphin on the street, and I can't tell if this is a real dolphin. Also, Logan apologizes to her, but he still kind of sucks because he tells her to cut off Dong completely, which is rude and terrible and bad. Also, he says the dolphin died on the sidewalk. Okay. Kimmy laughs like a maniac at the scary things at Titus's work. Also, Kimmy doesn't understand sex, I guess. Like, she tries to sleep with Logan, but it doesn't work. Whatever. Titus wants to be a mad scientist with the monologue, but Rick got it and Titus is pissed. His boss tells him that the scientist has to play a straight, and that's why he didn't get it, but Rick is gay too. So he's like, well, I could probably play straight if Rick can do it and he's gay. Moving on, Buckley and Xanthippe have just learned about the divorce. What's the deal with custody, though?
Wait, what's the deal with custody?
That's what I said.
What is the deal with custody?
That's what I said.
It's funny because it's true, Zan.
Rick recommends a straight acting coach to Titus, which is kind of chill of him. Like, I thought the episode was going to be about a conflict between these two guys, but actually Rick is like, you know, this is what helped me. Titus is like, thank you, which is like, I don't know, I thought that was nice. Anyway, Zan is pissed at Kimmy for telling Jacqueline that she should get a divorce. She doesn't want to live with her mom in Connecticut, which I agree. I wouldn't want to live with her mom in Connecticut either. I also don't want to say Connecticut anymore. Her mom seems to suck a little bit. Zan convinces Kimmy to help her not have to go to Connecticut, and Titus is learning how to act like a straight guy with a dude named Le Loup. The show implies that a bunch of random men are actually gay in this universe, including Hulk Hogan, Tom Cruise, George Clooney, and Obama. Those are the words that I wrote down. I'm going to say them like that. Whatever. Dong is in danger of being deported. Oddly enough, this random guy doesn't even assume he's an illegal immigrant.
And if that Dong Wang comes back, you guys let us know.
You got it, Chief.
Which is kind of chill of him. Kimmy asserts a boundary with Dong, and he respects it, which is great because he's a great guy. She's like, we have to just stay friends. Like, we have to, like, stop. And he's like, you know what? Friends. Which is nice of him. Zan pulls up to Kimmy's place and lies to her mom that she lives there doing drugs or something, so her mom won't take her back to Connecticut. And Titus is like, I'm her boyfriend. I'm her black boyfriend. Or whatever. And this woman goes, you have a gay black boyfriend? He's like, fuck, I can't even play straight here. And also Kimmy and Dong kiss, and then he's like, we can't do this anymore, and he leaves. Meanwhile, at Jacqueline's place, she is like with her friends, but it turns out she really doesn't like alcohol, so Kimmy catches her like avoiding drinking the alcohol and avoiding taking random pills. I'm going back and forth, it's whatever. Meanwhile from that, Titus has a straight breakthrough at a bar. Le Loup goes, the only person you needed to audition for was yourself.
The only person you needed to audition for was yourself.
Which is kind of nice. And also, the There Is No Entourage 2 thing made me laugh.
Oh, thank God. Oh, there is no Entourage 2. There is no Entourage 2. Oh.
Anyway, Kimmy calls Zan's mom to Jacqueline's place and exposes her for being a really smart and responsible person. She plays oboe in the school band, and she keeps a bird journal. Zan is then taken back to Connecticut, and I don't have to say Connecticut anymore. Also, Kimmy's gonna meet Logan's parents, but they're probably gonna break up in this episode, I think. I'm not sure. Logan evidently almost got Dong deported. So I think they break up after that. I don't remember exactly, but probably she just like kicks him out. I don't know. We don't see him again. Kimmy catches Dong before he leaves and tells him she wants to be with him. And she says, "You're not some daddy's boy who tries to dolphin me and then blimps." And he goes, "I understand all those words separately," which is a funny response. And I'm convinced Tina didn't write it. Anyway, every time they kiss, it's awkward, and I don't like it, and they have zero chemistry. And this was a scene that I was thinking about. I was like, why is it so awkward? They're both adults, and they're both attractive enough, I guess. They have no chemistry. Like, I feel like anybody who ships these two and thinks they're soulmates just thinks Dong's actor is hot, and that's why they think that. Because they have no chemistry. It's so weird. Anyway, episode 11, Kimmy rides a bike. I guess Lillian still doesn't know Kimmy is a mole woman? I don't know. I feel like I'd recognize her from like the news, but whatever. Kimmy has been called as a witness in the Reverend's trial, and Titus really wants to watch it, and I would too, honestly. Donna Maria is evidently selling mole woman mole sauce. And also, there was a girl in the bunker that actually was there by choice. Gretchen is defending the Reverend. She was the only one that was actually there by choice. She really believes in the Reverend as a holy man or something. Jacqueline is in a state after her divorce. They go to some, like, bike fitness thing, and their instructor is Nick Kroll. Tina Fey plays one of the lawyers defending the mole women. Tina, this is not funny. Every time you're on screen, you say something unfunny, and it's so unfunny and annoying to the point where it drags down the entire scene. I think the Reverend's nonsense is supposed to make me laugh, but it's just annoying that they're all like, wow, and they're so enthralled by him. Like, it goes on for so long, and I think it's supposed to be funny, but it's just annoying to watch. It just pisses me off. I really don't think he's that convincing. Maybe I'm just not stupid. This show really, really wants me to think that Nick Kroll is hot, and ripped, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't know. Anyway, Kimmy's also trying to avoid thinking about the bunker and everything, the Reverend and the trial. Kimmy got sucked into Nick Kroll's cult thing. It's like a fitness cult, and she's like, damn it, I got sucked into another cult. So she actually exposes him for being ugly, and she decides to go and testify against the Reverend in Indiana. I wrote, oh, I forgot that he was actually ugly this whole time, but man, I'm pretty sure those were his real arms and shoulders and pecs, and we all know how I feel about those things. So I don't know if this show is playing tricks on me, trying to make me think Nick Kroll was hot for a minute. I don't like it. Moving on. Episode 12, Kimmy goes to court. Cindy's evidently still gonna marry that gay man. Alright, we're in Indiana now. Gretchen gathered more women to follow the Reverend because she's a crazy bitch.
Why are you dressed like that? And who are these women? Did you actually find new people to join the Reverend's church?
And this is only the beginning. I got all these women from just one Lucille Roberts.
This isn't the beginning. It's the end. I'm gonna make waffles out of the Reverend.
The Reverend's trying to turn the jury against Kimmy. She finally went up on the stand to testify. And he says that she was trying to run away from Durnsville when he found her. And she explains that she had a fight with her mom over something. And he says, no, she's un-American. And he successfully turns them against her, which is so annoying. I'm sorry. This trial would not play this goddamn fast and loose with the rules. I don't care where it is in the country. This would be under national scrutiny. People would care. Things would happen. That's not how this works. You can't just be like, it's a little small town in Indiana. People are so stupid, you can get away with kidnapping there. There's other stuff happening in this episode, but I really don't care about it. Meanwhile, Kimmy actually realizes she needs to get back into the bunker and get evidence against the Reverend. And she convinces Donna Maria, Gretchen, and Cindy to come with her. Buster Scruggs runs off to go get a cat, and so he accidentally leaves the bunker abandoned, and it gets pushed down a little bit. That's not good. It seems like maybe it's closing in on them. Meanwhile, Kimmy, Cindy, and Donna Maria realize that the mystery crank that they all had to take turns cranking in the flashbacks actually powered
all of the things in the Reverend's lounge that they were never allowed to go to, and they get pissed and they start breaking shit. And then they find a safe, and then Kimmy figures out the thing to it and then opens it, and we don't get to see what's inside. Episode 13, Kimmy makes waffles. Last episode of the season, we're in the home stretch. In the safe was a tape, and it's just a tape of the Reverend's audition for The Apprentice. It's nothing, they don't have evidence. Jacqueline is also going through it after the divorce. Her house is a mess because Vera chose Julian, and she's not there anymore. Vera's the maid, if you remember. Lillian pulls up to Jacqueline's place and asks what's going on, and then meanwhile, Ed Hardy drives over the door to the safe and it shuts again, so now they're stuck. Meanwhile, Jacqueline tells Lillian that Kimmy is a mole woman, and they head out to Indiana to find Kimmy. She's upset that the apartment is a mess, and she's like, it used to just disappear. What did Vera do with it? Did she eat it?
I mean, what did Vera do with all this trash? It used to just disappear. Did she eat it?
And it made me laugh. Donna Maria actually evidently learned Spanish 2 years in, but she said that she just kept it to herself. She lies about it now because it's part of her brand, but she lied about it then because it made her feel like she had her own little island to herself. It was like a safe place from these annoying teenage girls that she was strapped with. They're mostly pissed at her for lying about this because she wouldn't testify in English against the Reverend. And she says that she didn't want the world to know she speaks English because part of her brand as the mole woman selling mole sauce is like she didn't speak English, you know what I mean? So, meanwhile, we get a flashback to Jacqueline's past, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like, they should have just cast an actual Native American woman. Like, it's so weird, I don't know. I don't care about these subplots at all, but just to catch you up, Randy went after the mayor's missing cat, and now he's stuck up a tree. Titus went viral with some auto-tune video of him embarrassing himself in the news, and Lillian and Jacqueline are heading out to Indiana to find Kimmy. None of these are funny, but I think the show really thinks that these are all funny comic relief subplots. They're not. They didn't make me laugh. Meanwhile, Kimmy and the other woman are still stuck in the bunker, but they're gonna try to climb out through the air vents. And they get out of the bunker and testify. Kimmy realizes she can use the audition tape because she goes, admit it, you didn't think that there was an apocalypse. You didn't let us out because you were manipulating us. You did not think there was an apocalypse. And he insisted that he thought there was an apocalypse.
Reverend, remind me, what was the date of the apocalypse again?
June 6, 2006 at 6:66 p.m.
And yet, you taped your audition for The Apprentice on June 5th, 2006. If you really believed the world was going to end the next day, then why in the ham sandwich were you trying to get on next season's Apprentice?
Because it was going to be an awesome season.
You never believed in anything!
Shut your mouth, Kimmy Schmidt. If God wanted women to talk, he wouldn't have made their mouths look so much like their privates. Guilty!
Then he says something gross, and then he gets thrown in jail or whatever. Lillian and Jacqueline finally pull up to the courthouse, and Jacqueline says, I'm gonna go find my family again. Meanwhile, Dong evidently got married to some older woman because he doesn't want to get deported, and because immigration found him while all of this was happening. Titus's wife saw the viral video and tracked him down. Evidently, she thought he was dead. Episode end, season 1 end. That's the end of season 1. Let's do a breakdown. I don't particularly like Kimmy. I don't love her. I don't think she's funny or charming or really all that likable. I don't have a problem with Ellie Kemper, but it's like Tina saw her character in The Office and said, oh, okay, we'll have that girl again. They should have just cast someone else. Titus is very funny, but more often than not, he's just reduced to being gay and selfish, and I don't really get the vibe that he cares about Kimmy more than he cares about being famous or whatever. I feel like he'd probably push her in front of a bus if it meant he got to be in The Lion King on Broadway. Lillian's funny, but she feels like a vessel for Tina's New York humor. It's so funny! It's not funny. Jacqueline, I actually quite like. She embodies a very rich and out-of-touch woman, but she seems to be the most empathetic and kind person half the time in this show. I enjoy Xanthippe. I think her character is fun because she seems more lonely than anybody else in the show, and I really empathize with her. Dong's portrayal, based on my research and talking to a couple of East Asian friends and that one person on Reddit, very helpful, thank you, is pretty racist. And although sometimes it feels like Tina did her research, other times it feels like she just made some shit up for no reason. Also, Ki Hong Lee is South Korean. He's not Vietnamese. It's just a weird casting choice.
I don't get this. Whatever. Overall, the show is a slog to get through so far because although it makes me laugh sometimes, overall what it's trying to do is very exhausting to watch. Most of the jokes aren't funny, and the least funny ones drag on for so goddamn long. Entire B, C, and D plots will be based on one unfunny joke, and it's so annoying it feels like it's just there to pad the runtime. Thoughts on the season? See, well, I like that the Reverend went to jail. I'm glad about that. I hate him. I'm glad most of the characters know that Kimmy's a mole woman now. I don't really get why that had to be a secret. I'm glad Jacqueline is divorced. Her husband sucks. I do think we're gonna see Xanthippe again, so I'm not worried about her being in Connecticut. I don't know how I feel about Jacqueline being a Lakota Sioux woman, so she's played by a white woman. I'm not even sure whether this was meant to be ironic, that Lillian says something along the lines of like, she's talking about like how, like what Native American people go through in America. And she says something like they're being forced to watch Mexicans play them on TV.
Everything Native Americans have been through. Robbed of their land, ravaged by smallpox, forced to watch Mexicans play them on TV, and now still with this nonsense. While standing next to a white woman playing a Lakota Sioux woman on this very show. I don't know if that was supposed to be intentional or not, that was like the joke, but it's weird. Okay. I'm gonna take a break from this show for a few days. Okay. As I said earlier, I sort of lost my mind recording season 1. And I feel like it just looked terrible. You know, the reading from my phone, the kind of weird way I'd set up the microphone, it was just all a lot and it looked bad and I just wasn't a fan of that. It was also very difficult to edit because I was just kind of haphazardly saying nonsense because I didn't really have a well-written script out of notes. So, it's a better script now. I think it'll be less scatterbrained. I'm just gonna tell you right now, season 2 made me lose my mind. I actively left work some days in a bad mood because I would be writing the script on my lunch break and it would piss me off for the rest of my day. Like, it would make me so mad. I would be in such a bad mood at the end of the day. And it's not good for me. So, thanks, Tina. Thanks, Robert Carlock. I hate you both. Season 2, Episode 1, Kimmy Goes Roller Skating. We start out in Christmas with a few details that I assume are supposed to excite me about the upcoming season, but only make me feel dread. Princess Carolyn lives on the couch, I guess. Titus speaks Japanese, and it's not really that funny, and I begin to wonder if there are any other apartments in this supposed apartment building. We then flash back to 3 months earlier. Titus' wife Vonda is suing him, but later admits to Kimmy that she's not even after money. She just wants an apology from Titus, whose real name is Ronald Wilkerson. Kimmy confronts Titus about this and tells him he's selfish and that Ronald was probably a better person than Titus is. She says that she wants to, quote, talk to Ronald, which turns into a very bizarre joke where I guess it's implied that Titus has some form of dissociative identity disorder. What he actually says is, I remember all of my past lives. Okay.
I want to talk to Ronald.
What?
He was good and nice, and he's still in there somewhere.
I have many past lives inside me.
I want to talk to Ronald.
No!
Titus Andromedon, let me speak to Ronald.
Ronald, I want to talk, please. That was Morisaki. I'll explain her later.
Ronald, you loved Vonda.
Leave us alone, lassie. Ooh, who was that? I sure didn't want to hurt Vonda Jean. I was scared to face her. What if she wouldn't accept my apology? Shut up, Ronald, you nerd.
I feel like I would have laughed at this when I was like 12. Maybe. But the people who wrote this are grown adults, so what does that say about them? You know what I mean? Anyway, at this point, I began to grow very tired of Kimmy's baby censoring, the way she says, gosh dang it, something, something. Like, 14-year-olds don't talk like that. And if they do, I haven't met them. I was only 14 once, and that was, oh my god, how many years ago? 7 years ago. So maybe I'm just out of touch with how 14-year-olds sounded in 1990-something. I don't know. Jacqueline is back home in, I think, Cincinnati, where her family lives and the Lakota Sioux tribe where her family lives is she's kind of hurting the community more than she's helping. She's not in touch with the culture anymore, and she's not helping anything. And her parents have to tell her that her place is in New York now. And after getting locked in the back of her car, long story, she kind of, I don't know, sits in the heat for a few hours, has some sort of an epiphany, and then decides to actually go back to New York, even though she was going to do that in the first place. But then she has, like, a purpose. I don't know. Meanwhile, Kimmy is still hung up on Dong, who is in a sham green card marriage now. She goes roller skating with him, Lillian, and Fred Armisen, and at the end, Fred Armisen and Lillian sing a little song together. I love Fred Armisen. I love documentary now. I love Portlandia. Unfortunately, even he can't make this show funny. Season 2, Episode 2, Kimmy goes on a play date. Kimmy gets a job at a year-round Christmas store, and meanwhile, Jacqueline's back. Julian sold the townhouse, which is where she was living. I didn't call it the townhouse at all when I was talking about Season 1, but that's what it is, the townhouse. So, Jacqueline's staying with Kimmy, who is helping her keep up a charade of wealth and, I don't know, opulence around the cool moms. When I say cool moms, I mean specifically one cool mom named Deirdre something, very complicated last name. If you recognize this blonde woman who plays Deirdre, it's Aubrey from Pitch Perfect, who ran this college a cappella group like it was the Navy. Anyway, Kimmy schedules a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles themed playdate for Buckley and the cool mom Deirdre's son, and she leads them through a sewer, I guess? After a few ridiculous lies that Kimmy helps Jacqueline pull off, Kimmy eventually snaps and tells Jacqueline she needs to stop lying, and also Jacqueline is affecting the way she goes about her life, and she's getting a little tired of it. Jacqueline explains to Kimmy that she's actually doing this because she wants to rebuild enough of a fortune to give Manhattan back to the Native Americans who were there before, I guess, or in some way financially support the Native Americans who occupied the space that Manhattan is now. Jacqueline then realizes that to truly convince Deirdre that she's richer than ever and she took Julian for every penny he's worth, she has got to spend $11.5 million of the $12 million she got in the divorce on some horrible abstract painting at an auction. This very much impresses Deirdre. So that's cool. Titus becomes obsessed over what becomes of some clothes he gives away and discovers that they've been taken by the construction worker who came out to him in Season 1, Mikey. Mikey then asks him out and Titus says yes and then proceeds to skip away, which was, honestly, it did make me laugh. I really like Mikey, honestly. I think he's one of the most likable and nice people we've met so far. He is so genuine and funny, and I just like him. Also, I didn't know where to put this when I was describing the plot, but there's a bit in the episode where Kimmy is singing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles song, and then she said, I wonder who wrote that song, and then she walks past a sign that says Chuck Lorre wrote that song, and I don't know why, but it made me giggle. It was just like so absurd. It was made less funny by a similar but less funny gag later on in that same scene. Season 2, Episode 3, Kimmy goes to a play. Titus develops a one-man show about his past life as a Japanese geisha named Murasaki, who is very troubled. Just as I was beginning to grow concerned about the appropriateness of Titus portraying a Japanese geisha, we got an Aisha Tyler joke that, if not distasteful, just feels a little mean-spirited. If you don't know who Aisha Tyler was, she's not dead. If you don't know who Aisha Tyler is, she played one of the, only Black women who is a recurring character in a later season of Friends. I believe she starts dating Ross, and I guess this was a big deal. Obviously, I didn't grow up in the 90s. I have no idea what the climate of, Black representation was on sitcoms like this, but I guess a lot of people refer to her as the Black lady from Friends. Kimmy's exact words in this joke were, well, if Aisha Tyler can play a white woman on Friends, which is that's, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like that's just not very nice. I don't think it's offensive, I guess, but it's mean. Aisha Tyler has talked a lot about how being the quote unquote Black lady from Friends has affected her career. And although, it might have been a big moment for representation in sitcoms like that, that's a lot of weight to put on someone's shoulders, being the first Black woman
ever, you know, being the first black woman represented in that sort of way on Friends. That might be a lot to put on someone's shoulders, and describing her as like a black woman playing a white woman on Friends is just, I don't even know what the joke is there. It just feels mean. Meanwhile, Lillian grows concerned about the neighborhood becoming gentrified. That'll be important later, but not necessarily in this episode. I would just like to let you know that they are planting seeds for this, because I was critical of the fact that the Mikey thing kind of happened all in one episode. So I would like to, you know, give credit where it's due when the show does do a slow thing where it builds up some sort of important plot point over the course of several episodes. Jacqueline has moved into a very nice apartment on the last bit of money she has left. She says it'll last her till Christmas maybe, and attends a function where we get yet another bizarre and quite frankly really gross joke about the things that rich people do to look younger. Maybe once or twice that's funny, but over and over again, it's just like gross for the sake of being gross, and I just don't like it. After learning that Julian is already dating again, Jacqueline attempts to find a date for some other rich person function, but after a few failed attempts and a pep talk from Kimmy, she decides to go alone. When she gets there, she's mocked for being alone, but then when Kimmy shows up, they assume Jacqueline has brought her as a date. Jacqueline decides to lie and declares she, quote, just needed a break from men, and the novelty of homosexuality between two women seems to fascinate the rich people. I don't know. Whatever. Meanwhile, back to Titus's one-man show. Titus is at the library. They don't have internet or computers at their house, so when they're on a computer, it's at the library. Anyway, Titus reads some internet comments about his one-man show, and as he sits and reads the computer screen out loud, I find myself wondering if he's capable of keeping a single thought inside of his head. Now, I'm not. A handful of people, some assumedly Japanese people, but honestly we know that the show thinks that all East Asian people look the same, so who knows what race these people are supposed to be. Anyway, they come to Titus's show to tell him that they find his portrayal of a Japanese geisha offensive. They're mad because he has stereotyped a Japanese woman as a Japanese geisha and not a businesswoman or something. They're portrayed as unreasonable and childish. This is so weird and unself-aware. I truly just don't think it's a good move to have Titus portray Murasaki. I think he should have maybe befriended a Japanese woman to physically embody Murasaki. Perhaps they could have cast an actual geisha. There are women who still carry on the traditions, and it would have been a lot more respectful. Titus could still sing, he could still narrate, but I think letting someone else take center stage for a story he's telling could actually give his character some growth. Instead of it being random people on the internet, which is obviously just Tina Fey's way of saying people on the internet are so sensitive. I hate stories and TV shows where it's just like the writer's way of saying, like, I think people on the internet are too sensitive and they don't like my jokes and they think that I'm racist and I think that that's really mean of them. Because it's like, maybe you're not racist, but you should be respectful of other people, and you maybe should listen when they're saying that they found something you did was disrespectful. To be clear, I'm not telling you to be offended by this plotline. I've actually seen a handful of reviews from Japanese audience members who weren't really offended at all and actually really loved the episode, and good for them, honestly. I don't really think the intention was to offend anybody, and Titus's performance comes off as genuine, and there's an earnestness to it. So, if Japanese people whose culture is being depicted here don't see a problem with it, it's not really my business to tell them that they should see a problem with it. It's just not my place. I just don't think that the 3 white writers credited for this episode have any business telling their Asian audience members that they're not allowed to be offended by the Asian representation that they're presented with. Anyways, Titus realizes that he's just gotta keep his head up and make sure the haters don't get him down. Even though he kind of gets his way every single time, this character is so entitled and hard to root for when he rarely has to sacrifice for others. I don't know what Titus is singing here or if it's an actual geisha song, but what I do appreciate at least is that it is played straight. There's no jokes included in Titus's performance to try to make it feel cheap. I do appreciate the fact that when Titus does perform, it is played not for laughs,
but it is serious.
Weird. It's like I can't breathe. Wait, I'm not allowed to say that. I offended myself.
Season 2, Episode 4, Kimmy kidnaps Gretchen. Mikey pulls up to the apartment looking for Titus, and Titus finds his newness at being gay. I don't, what's the word? Intimidating, but in a way where you're not scared? I don't know. He finds himself not up for the challenge of teaching Mikey how to be gay the way he is, I guess. I don't know. There was a joke here that was funny enough for me to write down. I don't know why it made me giggle, but like, I feel like oftentimes when Titus and Kimmy are at their funniest, or when Titus is at his funniest, is when he's having an argument with somebody and he shouts something that's just so, I don't know, well delivered in the middle of like an argument. It just makes me laugh. I just like it.
I call a MILF.
Don't tell us what you think it stands for.
Interesting lady
We already
friend.
know it's wrong.
Cindy calls Kimmy and says she emailed her a link to an infomercial for a Scientology parody called Cosmetology because Gretchen is in it. Because Gretchen has a pattern of getting involved in cults. I didn't mention it in the last season breakdown, but when Gretchen realizes that the Reverend was actually lying, she does kind of abandon that. She doesn't believe in the Reverend anymore. Kimmy goes to the library to read the email and click on the link, and she stops at the computer to sing an annoying song that made me want to throw my computer out of a window.
Funny and Kitty being best friends, together forever, the fun never ends. Solving mysteries one hug at a time. Bunny and Kitty, two of a kind.
And then she runs to stop Gretchen from getting on the cosmetology boat and takes her to her apartment and tries to talk some sense into her. Eventually she realizes that maybe Gretchen is better as a follower, and then from there she realizes maybe Gretchen is good as a leader for a cult herself. I don't know. Anyway, Titus and Mikey can't really get into any nightclubs, and it becomes a little awkward, but only because Mikey is a person with actual substance to him, who has interests and likes things, and Titus is convinced that anything that doesn't have to do with what he's thinking or what benefits him at this moment is actually boring and lame. Mikey convinces him to stop at a food cart, and they start actually talking, and they're really getting along, and they actually seem to have some chemistry, which I like a lot, actually. And Titus starts to realize he's being a little self-involved, and I appreciate that that was the thesis of this episode, that Titus was wrong, because I was getting real tired of this show just being like, Titus has a problem, and the solution is that Titus was right. Okay, anyway, they have fun, but they're hovering in front of a service window, which I find rude. I hate when people hover in front of service windows in TV shows, because I'm like, there's people behind you. What the fuck is this conversation? Anyways, the episode ends with them together. They like each other, whatever. Season 2, Episode 5, Kimmy gives up. This episode starts with Kimmy attempting to make a Frasier reference and failing. She says that she and Dong were the quote-unquote Roz and Frasier of their class, which doesn't make sense. All she's done is list 2 characters, because I don't know if Tina Fey has some sort of weird delusions about the chemistry that she wrote between Kimmy and Dong, but no, it's actually nowhere near as well written as the chemistry between Roz and Frasier. Did you watch Frasier? Because Roz and Frasier got along, and they had chemistry as friends and as people who hooked up once. You know what I mean? What were you watching in the 90s? Because it clearly wasn't Frasier. Jacqueline finds herself frustrated by Buckley's horrible personality and decides to medicate him rather than actually parent him, because obviously she doesn't have the same money and resources that she had when she was married to Julian. Hey, Johnny, that was a big stretch. Hey! You want to come sit up here? No? He likes that spot over there. Johnny.
She soon regrets medicating him as she's unsettled by the zombie-like behavior that the medicated kids on the playground exhibit and decides to take him off the medication and actually hang out with him instead. Just kidding! She keeps him drugged and takes him on errands, but then when Kimmy questions her, she decides to take the drug herself. She realizes it takes her joy away and takes him off of it, and then she has fun and hangs out with him at a department store. It's all very nice. I actually like this plotline. Again, I find myself liking Jacqueline's plotlines the most. Why is that? Maybe because she's written like a person. Also, the show is dedicated to making me dislike Jacqueline, and so it often has plotlines where she is in the wrong and that she has to learn a lesson by the end. But the thing is, I do like Jacqueline, but I can see when she's in the wrong. But then, when she learns a lesson, I just like her more because she's capable of self-reflection, unlike some main characters of this show. Kimmy is unable to help Jacqueline as she's still working on her GED, as well as making a scrapbook for Dong and his sham wife to prove that their sham marriage is definitely not a sham. She's so overworked that she falls asleep at her GED exam and then fails. I suppose I should mention Titus and Lillian's uninteresting subplot where Titus refuses to acknowledge that his life has changed for the better, and then at the end he accepts it. I don't know. I don't really care about a lot of these subplots with Titus. Titus is funny, but the thing is, his subplots are literally the least impactful to the story half the time. So, like, if it seems like the episode is, like, strangely not about Titus, Titus was in there. I just didn't care. So, Season 2, Episode 6, Kimmy drives a car. Jacqueline is planning a big charity event. Unfortunately, she breaks a tooth and begins to speak with a lisp. The dentist doesn't have any slots for her that day, and she can't book an appointment. And then there's this unfunny Mentos joke where she glues a Mentos to replace the gap in her teeth. Kimmy needs to get a driver's license at the DMV in order to get some alcohol for Jacqueline's gala, but in her hassle to multitask, she neglects her job at the year-round Christmas store and gets fired. She grows more and more resentful of Jacqueline's entitlement to her help as she's not paying her and she's being a really shitty friend. They argue and Jacqueline goes, "Fine, you're my employee again, but not my friend," and Kimmy drives her somewhere. When Jacqueline gets out to go somewhere, a guy mistakes Kimmy for his Uber and she goes with it, forcing Jacqueline to take the bus. She then spots the front desk woman from the dentist on the bus who seems to be struggling to fix her broken heel, her shoe, not like her bone, but like her shoe. And she was kind of rude to the front desk lady earlier, but she's just suddenly humbled by the sight of this woman just trying to get by, and in an act of genuine, heartwarming kindness, gives the receptionist her really nice, expensive heels, one of probably the most expensive things she has left in her possession. She gives them to her and asks for nothing in return. This is one of my favorite Jacqueline moments so far in the entire show. I just thought it was so sweet. Linda, the receptionist, gets her an appointment and her tooth gets fixed. Jacqueline apologizes to Kimmy, and now that Kimmy's got a job as an Uber driver, she agrees to let her borrow her car every now and then. Jacqueline agrees to let Kimmy borrow her car. Kimmy doesn't have a car. Obviously, the car is one of the only things that Jacqueline got to keep in the divorce. So, it's a nice car. Anyways, meanwhile in the B-plot of this episode, Titus puts their apartment on Airbnb, much to Lillian's chagrin. She becomes uneasy and angered by the presence of the hipsters in the apartment. Being genuinely upset about an epidemic of hipsters is so 2015, but the only thing that actually did make me laugh in this subplot was Titus out-hipstering them. Like, that actually did make me giggle, and I'll play the clip here.
What the hell?
Do you have a resi? Vacation?
For what? This place is empty.
Unless there's a secret password protected after-hours speakeasy behind that door. Egg. Shyamalan. Oh, hi!
Oh my god, are you trying? Ew. Late Chaz.
Season 2, Episode 7, Kimmy walks into a bar. Kimmy picks up Jacqueline's gala dress, and on her way back, she stops at a bar to use the bathroom. When she comes out, a very hunky guy approaches her and tells her that he served in the army and that he can tell she did too. What he's actually spotting is the bunker trauma that he can see in her face. But it doesn't matter because he's into her, and they talk for a bit, and he later asks her out. Dude, this guy is so hot. We never see him again. It's such a shame. We do see him again in this episode, obviously, but we don't see him again ever after this, if I remember correctly. Which is a shame, because I think he's hot, and I like him more than Dong. So anyways, we see that Titus is struggling to hang out with Mikey because Titus is the world's worst listener. If your boyfriend starts talking to you about his work that you don't understand, you ask him questions and let him explain things to you. People love explaining things they're interested in. Anyways, after Titus meets Mikey's coworkers, who are just like construction guys, he realizes he doesn't really talk to them that much. So Titus realizes that he's actually opening up to him. And now he realizes that it's his responsibility to listen to and engage with Mikey's talk about work or whatever. I feel like he should have been listening in the first place, because why else would you be with someone if you don't care what they have to say about their life? Jacqueline runs into Deirdre and they realize that they scheduled their galas on the same night. It's a long story. She didn't actually schedule the gala on the same night. It was Mimi Canassis' fault. Turns out Mimi Canassis, the woman I've been calling Princess Carolyn, put the date on the invites backwards like the British do, and Deirdre and the venue think that the gala is on December 10th, whereas Kimmy gave the vendors the correct date, which is October 12th. Jacqueline scrambles, but Deirdre is a little crazy because she's genuinely very intelligent, and she feels starved of intellectual conflict, and begs Jacqueline to fight back so she could actually feel something. Jacqueline soon has an idea and a plan. Meanwhile, Mimi Canassis says and does some very unfunny things. Sorry. I don't know where that fucking gnat went. Jacqueline went from a mistress to Julian's wife. So she knows a lot of mistresses of rich men. Anyway, Jacqueline's plan involves inviting a lot of those mistresses to her apartment for the gala so that the waspy rich men at Deirdre's gala leave their wives to go see their mistresses. Kimmy bonds with Keith, the hunky guy, at Jacqueline's gala over what regular people think is scary, but the sound of champagne cork popping genuinely seems to startle him. Titus and Mikey are at the gala, and Mikey suddenly tells Titus that he's tired of talking, but thought that Titus wanted him to talk. And then they laugh about the misunderstanding. It's very sweet. I still don't really like that Titus just gets it out to, like, not listen to Mikey or whatever. Like, you should listen to your loved ones when they're talking to you about things that interest them. Meanwhile, Kimmy and Keith are talking, but Mimi Canassis knocks over a table, and the sudden sound frightens Keith, who pulls Kimmy behind the kitchen island for cover. This startles Kimmy, causing her to punch him in the stomach out of instinct. Their flashbacks sort of collide, and then at the same time they snap back to reality. He explains the concept of trauma triggers to her, and she's like, no, I can lock it away. I can also get my 15 Christmases back that I missed, and she's gonna do a Christmas every week now. And then we never get to see our favorite hunky guy again. Jacqueline begins to explain to the people at the gala that it's to benefit the Native Americans, and they simply do not listen to her, and then she realizes that she failed. Season 2, Episode 8, Kimmy goes to a hotel. The Christmas we started with at the beginning of the season was actually the fake Christmas that Kimmy decided to celebrate every week. Dong's green card wife accuses Kimmy of driving her marriage apart because she found her purple scrunchie under his pillow. Kimmy lies and says that she's the one who put it under the pillow so she can protect Dong, but it's clear that he does still care about her, and that's why he kept the scrunchie. Dong later comes by Kimmy's house and tells her he wants to be with her, and they go to the Poconos? I don't know where the Poconos is, or how reasonable it is that they could go to the Poconos by themselves. But they hang out and they have fun in this really shitty hotel, but I guess they also want to sleep together. It's weird, and they kind of have no chemistry. And also she keeps hitting him with a rotary phone when they kiss. Dong gets arrested, they hook up in the back of the cop car, whatever. Meanwhile, a Jewish family wants Jacqueline's abstract painting she bought before. They claim it's rightfully theirs, which is a plotline that I'm sure is meant to echo her claims that Manhattan belongs to the natives. The lawyer representing them is David Cross. Lillian is also part of this plotline and encourages her to commit insurance fraud. So that's fun. Jacqueline listens to a voicemail from her parents that I'm just gonna play for you.
Oh, we forgot to tell you. That secret society at Yale finally agreed to return your great-great-grandfather's skull.
It's a beer stein now. But the important thing is that he's home.
See, people do the right thing eventually.
And that's what makes her realize that she needs to give the painting back. It's the right thing to do. Despite the fact that it's the most valuable thing she owns right now, she realizes also that David Cross's character is rich and starts flirting with him. I don't like David Cross. I'm sorry. Like, I don't like this Tobias ass, Alvin and the Chipmunks ass dude. Season 2, Episode 9, Kimmy meets a drunk lady. Tina Fey is back playing another character that I hate. This time, she's a drunk passenger that Kimmy drives home. She tells Kimmy to value her needs as much as she values other people's needs, and also forces me to watch her fake vomit on screen, which I hate. Kimmy takes her advice and becomes more assertive with Titus. Side note, second worst part of this episode is the fake versions of popular songs, the lyrics to which I suppose are supposed to make me laugh, but actually fill me with rage. So, Kimmy's newfound assertiveness causes a fight with Titus, and she storms out, gets another Uber request from Tina Fey, picks her up, and Tina's like, "You're a doormat," but imagine that said for longer and with big words and in a really annoying fake drunk way. Tina Fey is a therapist and an alcoholic. She tells Kimmy that repressing her trauma is bad for her and will cause bad shit to happen. Next thing she knows, Kimmy's on a roller coaster at Coney Island with no idea how she got there and decides to go to Tina Fey and ask for help. Tina says she can't help because therapists need boundaries with their patients. For some reason, her character is portrayed as a person with two personalities, her daytime self and her compartmentalized drunk nighttime self. And the drunk version of her is going to blackmail her, I guess, to make her day self be Kimmy's therapist because drunk Andrea, that's her name, wants to treat her. I think it's bizarre to have her treated like essentially two different characters, but whatever, she's her therapist now. Anyway, season 2, episode 10, Kimmy goes to her happy place. I wonder if the writers forgot that Kimmy was kidnapped when she was 14, because sometimes it feels like they want us to think she was kidnapped and then not educated since she was 5. Andrea starts giving Kimmy stickers to help remind her of her progress in therapy, but when Kimmy finds out that the stickers are for kids, she's pissed. Then she sort of controls her temper and explains how she goes to her happy place when she's upset, and a very ugly musical cartoon sequence, to which Andrea says, "You're allowed to be angry, and repressing your anger is bad for you." After becoming unhinged in a deli, her happy place turns into... Well, I may have to blur some of this. It's really gross. I don't know. Anyway, it turns out that Kimmy's repressed some anger towards her mother. Mikey realizes he needs to come out to his parents, and Titus is more interested in the drama of it than the emotional weight of this confession for Mikey. Not to give you nightmares, but he has a family member who's a very disturbing Jeff Dunny-ass puppet. For no reason. I don't know what this joke is. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, Mikey's family disappoints Titus by being loving and accepting, nothing like the dramatic spectacle he was hoping for. Titus really wanted to be the center of attention, and he has a hard time accepting that the world doesn't revolve around him. Anyways, instead of learning that he doesn't have to be the center of attention, he gets to be a spectacle, so that's great for him. Meanwhile, Lillian protests condominiums being built in her neighborhood by handcuffing herself to a bulldozer. Season 2, episode 11. Kimmy meets a celebrity. Tina Fey told Kimmy to talk to a photo of her mother so she could kind of work through her issues, but Cindy decides to do a surprise visit to New York and kind of derails her. Cindy explains that she's actually in New York because her phone therapist is here, but when she takes Kimmy to meet him, it's just a Dr. Phil parody portrayed by Jeff Goldblum. This show feels like a really horrible circus that exploits people's tragedies, and normally I would say that it feels exaggerated and ridiculous, but I hate Dr. Phil and his shit show, so I don't care, and this is actually pretty accurate. Anyways, Kimmy goes to Jeff Goldblum to ask him to help Cindy mature or something, but instead Dr. Dave instigates a fight on the TV set instead. Kimmy wears the worst outfit ever, and then Dr. Dave flies Brandon out to the set and says he'll have their wedding on the show. Kimmy cries, interrupts the wedding, in turn making Cindy call off the TV wedding. Meanwhile, Titus's B-plot is him father figuring a random kid at the movie theater. I don't care about this plot. Season 2, episode 12, Kimmy sees a sunset. Tina Fey's alcoholism seems to worsen as she begins to day drink, and she becomes increasingly insufferable. Kimmy reveals her mother is a quote-unquote coaster head, meaning that she's addicted to the adrenaline rush of roller coasters. Kimmy resolves to help Andrea with her alcoholism and takes her to some sort of German sausage party. And again, we have this annoying dialogue where we pretend that sober Andrea is a different individual altogether, which I think is part of the problem. Meanwhile, we find out that Jacqueline has been pursuing Russ, the lawyer guy that David Cross is playing. She finds him disgusting, but she really needs his money. So Lillian gives her advice on getting Russ to fall in love with her. Anyways, as he explains why he's really socially inept and strange, she kind of realizes he is a good person, despite being a kind of uncomfortable person to actually know, I guess. Titus and Mikey decide to move in together, but then Titus gets cast as a cruise ship performer, which means he'd have to leave for 4 months. Mikey encourages him to leave. He loves him way too much to make him skip this chance. By the way, I didn't mention when this happens. I'm not even sure what episode this happens in. Maybe it happens in this episode, maybe it happens before. Titus was very sick and then went to an audition that he didn't know what the audition was for, and makes up a song for Trident Gum called Outside Bones.
Outside bones, never forget teeth. Outside bones, the bones that you wash. And when you're a kid, they fall from your head. And to make things less weird, we say they got stolen by a demon. That's your parents. No. Trident. In lieu of my usual audition piece, that was a jingle for gum I just made up.
And that's what gets him the role on this cruise ship. Anyways, Kimmy handcuffs herself to Andrea on the roof of her office building and tells her she's not letting her leave until the sun comes down to keep Night Andrea from winning. This doesn't really work, and eventually Andrea has to smack her with it's not your responsibility to fix others, and it's not your fault that people leave. Kimmy then resolves to find her mother and deal with her issues head on. The reason why Night Andrea wins is because she was drinking from like a Camel backpack water bottle the entire time. And she's like, my problems are my problems. They're not your problems. You don't have an obligation to fix me. You know what I mean? And you don't have an obligation to fix others. Other people's problems are not your responsibility. Season 2, episode 13, Kimmy finds her mom. Kimmy and Titus are driving to Florida, and I get that the road is green screen, but I don't think anybody told Ellie Kemper that she's driving on a straight highway because she keeps wiggling the wheel back and forth like she's dodging small animals. It's so weird. I completely forgot that Kimmy's mom is played by Lisa Kudrow. I don't really like Lisa Kudrow. I remember I was watching Easy A with my mom and she noticed it, and there was nothing wrong with having eyes that kind of move back and forth. Maybe it's literally her vision, maybe it's just the way her face moves. It's not like a judge of character on her or whatever. My mom noticed that she was like not directly looking at this dude head on. It was like she was reading her lines over his shoulder. And after she pointed that out, I could not stop seeing it in everything she was in. Anyways, we get some definitely very funny and definitely not gross out humor with her coaster head friends. And we learned that Lori Ann Schmidt, that's Kimmy's mom's name. I'm going to stop calling her Lisa Kudrow. I'm going to call her Lori Ann. We learned that Lori Ann Schmidt is a pretty irresponsible and flaky person. Despite this, she does seem to genuinely commit to spending time with Kimmy, even going so far as to rip up her express pass, which, by the way, they're at Universal Studios Orlando. I've been there. Fun fact. I want to go back. It was fun, actually. I liked this Spider-Man motion sim ride. I like motion sim rides better than actual rides because I'm very afraid that I'm going to slip out of the seats somehow. So that's fun for me. Anyway, sorry. She rips up the express passes so that she can wait in line with Kimmy so she can get new passes for the both of them. But Titus informs Kimmy over the phone that Lori Ann's apology was kind of disingenuous because she apologized before Kimmy could actually tell her what she was feeling. He's right. Lori Ann avoids conflict or the topic of Kimmy's trauma at every single opportunity. Meanwhile, Titus gets cold feet about the cruise and decides instead to get on a bus that's apparently headed towards Titusville. I don't care about this plotline. I'm sure he's going to go on some sort of self-involved adventure and then eventually go to the cruise ship. So I don't care. Jacqueline meets Russ's family. His brothers and father are bullies and misogynists and also own the Washington Redskins, to Jacqueline's horror. She confronts Russ about this and says she's Lakota Sioux and admits she's not rich. She's here to help Native people, you know what I mean? And Russ is like, I hate my family. I've been trying to get them to change the name of the team for years. This brings them together and their relationship becomes much more genuine. And they decide that together they're going to take down the Washington Redskins from the inside. Kimmy confronts her mother on a roller coaster. Kimmy and Lori Ann talk on the Rip Ride Rocket. Kimmy says that she's pissed. And Lori Ann says she doesn't want to be blamed for Kimmy's being kidnapped, but also Kimmy's still angry. She has a breakthrough and realizes the reason that she's freaked out by Velcro, that was mentioned earlier, I just didn't care at the time. Kimmy's freaked out by Velcro. The reason why is because her mother never bothered to teach her how to tie her shoes, and she wore Velcro sneakers till she was like 14. The day Kimmy was kidnapped, she was walking with some other girls and had to stop and adjust her Velcro shoes. Her mittens got caught, the other girls kept walking, and the Reverend had found her alone. She associates Velcro with being kidnapped. Then, Kimmy realizes she can't say or do anything to unkidnap herself. She accepts it, forgives her mother, despite never really getting a proper apology, because she realizes no matter what Lorianne says, she can't undo her kidnapping. So she realizes she just needs to let go. Lillian decides to run for Congress? City Council? I don't remember what the words they use. Maybe I should just put the clip in, because I don't remember. Meanwhile, the Reverend decides to call Kimmy from prison, says he's getting married, and that he and Kimmy need to get a divorce. What? I don't care. End season. Season 2, a lot more Tina Fey than we needed or wanted. But it's a lot easier to have a therapist character tell our protagonist what's wrong with them than to have a story with themes that the audience has to use their brains to pick up on. Writing. Kimmy is fine, I guess. I don't care. One thing I really dislike about the way that she's written is that she feels really infantilized. I don't understand why she acts like a 4-year-old. I don't think being kidnapped at 14 would freeze your mental state the way it freezes Kimmy's and Cindy's. But even then, I feel like the writers keep forgetting that she was 14 when she was kidnapped and not 4. I find the writers' choice to portray Kimmy as some sort of giant toddler really strange, and it makes it hard to take her relationship seriously because I see her as a child. I like Kimmy so much more when she stands up to people and yells at them and tells them they're being inconsiderate, but these moments are few and far between. I don't think a 14-year-old would laugh at the stickers Andrea gives her like this.
Maybe that smiling purple ball is right. I am great at this. Okay, that's funny.
Especially because I'm expected to believe that she had never encountered a pun before that moment. She was clearly forced to mature a little too fast because her mom's such a flaky person, and she was a protective sister to Cindy in the bunker, so it's not like she was just trapped in some sort of innocent child's mindset when the Reverend kidnapped her. All of this being said, what I'm forced to believe is that Kimmy is simply stupid. Tina Fey thinks the people who live in small Midwestern cities are naturally stupid, and this is another stereotype that I just don't find funny. That's it. Titus's inability to grow past his narcissism is really annoying. I don't find it funny. Almost all of his plotlines seem like they might end up teaching him a lesson about how everything's not going to be about him, but then everything gets to be about him. I wish he would learn to think of others and apologize for being an inconsiderate, self-involved person, but at this point, I doubt that's ever going to happen. I think Tina likes to think Titus is her Bender character, but Bender is a robot, and he very often has moments where he has to apologize or learn to consider others. And when he doesn't, it's a one-off joke, not his entire storyline. Also, Bender is quite simply a much more funny and likable character because Futurama has good writing, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt doesn't, and Titus is getting less and less likable. Also, Bender was one character out of a large, funny ensemble cast full of funny characters. Titus is one very big, important main character out of a kind of small ensemble cast of a lot of really unlikable characters. Anyways, I liked Jacqueline. I think she tends to be a character that I respect the most. I find her storylines enjoyable because I care about her cause and because she has morals and a backbone. I like Lillian most as a partner in crime of sorts with Jacqueline. I think they're somehow polar opposites, yet very similar, which I find interesting. Their mutual respect for each other is something I also really like to see because it's not something I would expect for these two characters to respect and get along, but it also kind of makes sense in a weird way. That being said, I like Jacqueline a lot. Lillian on her own tends to be pretty unfunny. Perhaps it's because I don't relate to her wanting her neighborhood to stay a shithole. I find her New York resident personality flat and uninteresting. I like Mikey a lot. I barely have anything to say about Mikey. I love Mikey. His constant enthusiasm and patience is just infectious and lovable, but there isn't really much else to this character. I wish he challenged Titus's narcissism more. I wish he would call Titus out on his narcissism more. And it frustrates me that he feels like a doormat for Titus to just kind of reflect off of. Overall, season 2 was whatever. I think that it's bad that I still really don't care about the main protagonist when we're halfway through the entire series. See you in season 3, I guess. My roots will be grown out more, and I will be even more miserable, I suppose. Bye. Alright, season 3 sucked. I hated season 3. I'm not surprised that I hated it. I'm not surprised that it sucked. I hate this show. One thing that I noticed was that I remembered, like, almost none of it, surprisingly enough. Which I remembered, like, I thought I remembered a good portion of this season, but a lot of these episodes, I was like, where is this going again? So anyway, season 3, episode 1, Kimmy gets divorced. It's important to note, I think, that this episode deviates from the other titles because there's a question mark at the end. Wow. We start the season out ominously with Titus washed up on the beach, spitting up sand. And then he says this to a bird, and it made me laugh. I'm not really sure why.
Don't even. Stupid sea pigeon looking at me like that. Please. You are also at the beach with no friends.
Kimmy's hair is shorter, and also she officially got her GED. Jacqueline still really likes Russ, I suppose. And Lillian is running for district council. That is what I failed to remember, because what is district council? I don't know. I don't know what a district council is. Anyways, after the title sequence, Titus returns home. Kimmy questions him because the cruise wasn't supposed to be over yet, but he avoids all questions about the cruise or Dionne Warwick's health and goes to bed. The Reverend, or I'm calling him Rick. I don't like calling him the Reverend. It's stupid. Rick calls Kimmy and says the divorce papers are in the mail, and we get a flashback to a somehow legal marriage between Kimmy and Rick in the bunker. This is portrayed as goofy and ridiculous and funny. I will be addressing this later. Titus seems sick, like his actor seems sick. His voice sounds really weird.
Why is your hair shorter? Or is it that your head is getting bigger? Everyone can do questions now. Girl, I need to lie down. I'm starting to feel landsick again.
I don't know what that's about. Anyways, he said he had to eat his paychecks. I mean, he lost them, so he doesn't have any money. The cruise did nothing for him because he has no money. He is afraid to go see Mikey. I suppose he's embarrassed because Mikey supported his dreams and he sort of failed. Meanwhile, Kimmy brings the divorce papers to Jacqueline to look over. Mimi Canassis is there and she's just saying so many unfunny things. I just hate her so much. Jacqueline tells Kimmy to withhold her signature so that she can use the divorce papers as leverage over Rick, so she can have like that power back. You know what I mean? I really truly did not need to see this much of Mimi Canassis' body. Made me uncomfortable, gonna be honest. Titus goes to his rival Coriolanus, I want to say his name was, it really doesn't matter, to see if he can get him on Sesame Street because he was in Sesame Street in the 70s and he has a contact there. He tells Titus where he can find him, and I assumed that there was going to be some sort of catch to this, but there wasn't. He just helps him. But he acts like he's, like, gonna get him. I don't know. There's no resolution to why Coriolanus just, like, helps him for no reason. Like, I don't really get why that happened, but whatever. Anyways, Titus goes to the morning exercise class where the Sesame Street guy is, and he finds his phone, like he finds the guy's phone in his bag or something, and he calls someone from Sesame Street and schedules an audition for himself. Lillian, meanwhile, has to break up with Fred Armisen because she thinks it might look bad for her political career. I know it's kind of hard to explain because I didn't really mention this. Fred Armisen's character is a guy named Bobby Durst, who Lillian's known since like the 70s. It's implied that like his mind is going or something, so I suppose Lillian thinks like a guy that's, I don't know, trying to kill her is what they say. I don't know. It would be bad for her political career. When she breaks up with him, he just kind of goes, all right, bye. And she's upset at this reaction and mopes for the rest of the episode. And then later he tells her she's living in the past. Being with him is not going to help. He tells her that she has let a bad person back into her life and that's not good for her. And Kimmy overhears this and pretends like he said this to her. Kimmy has been dragging Rick around for most of the episode, pretending she can't read, blah, 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 just to, like, mess with him. And she's like, no, that doesn't apply to me because I turn the tables. And Fred Armisen's like, but you're still at the same table. He then pisses his pants and leaves. I'd like to again point out that I hate when TV shows have a character just tell the protagonist what's wrong with them rather than the story having themes for the audience to pick up on themselves. And when I wrote this, I did feel this way. And then I watched Community. Again, I was rewatching Community, and look, I realized this. Jeff does this. Jeff will give a speech at the end of an episode to the other 5 likable characters in the cast. I like that. I really like Jeff's winger speeches. There's eyeliner on my nail. That's fun. There's always eyeliner on my hands. I like Jeff's speeches. I like the way Community is written. I like the sentimentality of a lot of the speeches and way that the characters talk to each other. So I don't know what makes this different, because Jeff will outright say, you know, blah, 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 friendship is everything and all we have, or something, and I like that. So why don't I like it in this show? Well, there's a long answer and there's a short answer, and I'm going to give you the short answer because this whole video is the long answer. The short answer is that this show sucks. Anyways, somehow Titus calling in, he did get an appointment. I don't know how that happened. I know he's talking to the Sesame Street guy from earlier. Unfortunately, after a bit, it is very clear what's going on, and we have a casting couch situation that I just don't want to talk about. I want to move on from this. You know what I mean? Anyway, Titus refuses and goes to see Mikey. Meanwhile, Kimmy signs the divorce papers and tells Jacqueline she's going to college, and Jacqueline's like, well, hold on. College is expensive. Rick has plenty of shit. Why don't you just make him give you half his stuff in a divorce so you can sell it to pay for college? And she's like, you're so right. So that's what she's decided to do now. Titus goes to see Mikey, but he sees another guy get out of his truck with him, and he's like, oh my god, he's cheating on me. You know what I mean? So, whoa! Season 3, Episode 2, Kimmy's Roommate Lemonades. Wow, what a bad title. Kimmy can't decide what she wants to study in college, and Lillian encourages her to take a career aptitude test. Titus tells Kimmy he's certain that Mikey is cheating on him, and he's pissed about this, and he starts to plan, I don't know, something. Here's the thing. The only reason I know what Lemonading is, or what that album is because I had to take, I took a music appreciation class, fall of 2022, so we had to listen to a few songs from that album. Meanwhile, Jacqueline is heading up a cleanup for a river cleanup thing. They call it like the sludge cleanup. I don't know. Lillian protests this because she opposes change. Titus does the actual eliminating thing. It's like a parody of that one song where Beyonce's underwater or something. I'm not even gonna pretend I care about this. Beyonce should have dumped that man. The aptitude test tells Kimmy she should become a crossing guard? Okay. Jacqueline and Lillian start to argue about the river cleanup thing or something, and they both realize that the only registered voter in the district is Kimmy. I don't believe that. They argue for Kimmy's vote, and then they do a very gross water joke. Ugh. It's just so gross. It's just like gross for the sake of being gross. Anyways, one of the guys from Hamilton is a college guy, I guess. It's Davy Diggs. I should just have said Davy Diggs. I forgot how much I liked this character. Or maybe I didn't like him last time I watched it, but I just really love this character. I think he's such a fun back and forth with Kimmy. I think he's somebody that, reacts to what Kimmy says and, a way that makes sense, unlike literally every single other character that interacts with her. I like him. When he's talking to Kimmy, he's a philosophy major. So he's like, what does it mean to be a good person and how do you make those choices? And he says something that helps her figure out her choice between voting for Lillian and not voting for Lillian. Like, Jacqueline's not running for district council, but she is running for, positive change. You know what I mean? I think that David is really funny. His name's Perry. I should call him Perry. I think Perry and Kimmy have a really good character dynamic because, he's smart enough to understand what she doesn't understand. Davy Diggs has good comedic timing, if we're being honest. And he's really patient with her. He also seems to like her because she asks him about his major. He's interested in the things she says. She's interested in the things he says. It feels like a mutual thing, and I feel like he's somebody who, I don't know, he feels like a human from the real world. That's what he feels like. He feels like a real human being. Anyways, for some reason, Kimmy votes for Lillian. I don't know why she did that. She just wants to keep the neighborhood a shithole. Why does she want to do that? I don't know. Regardless, I do really like Lillian and Jacqueline hanging out. It makes me happy. Mikey insists that he is not cheating on Titus. The guy he's been hanging out with, Jeff, is just a friend. You know what I mean? And he takes him to, those, batting cages where you like a machine spits out a baseball at you and you hit it. That's what they do. At some point, Mikey realizes that he never told Jeff that Titus was his boyfriend, and then as he's telling Titus that he chooses him, even though he has great chemistry with Jeff, Titus remembers doing the exact same thing, begging the first boyfriend he ever had to stay with him, and he realizes he needs to set Mikey free. I love this. It's just one of the most mature things they could have possibly written for Titus. That he realizes he can't chain Mikey to him. That just because he's the first boyfriend he's had since he came out, he might never think that there's anybody else out there for him. And Titus needs to be the one to set him free and trust that if they're supposed to be together, they'll find their way back to each other. This is a good moment for Titus. I think Mikey deserves to explore the world as a single gay man and end up with someone he shares a lot of interest with, not just the first gay man he asked out. Kimmy tells Perry that she's decided she's going to go to his school so she can be a philosophy student with him. And he's like, well, I'm actually transferring to Columbia soon. Also, you don't really have to be a crossing guard just because that test told you should. And she's like, you know what, you're right. And she crumples up her application to this school and tosses it because she's going to start over and figure out what she wants to do. Now that Kimmy has voted for her, Lillian is on the district council, and when they bring up Jacqueline's river cleanup proposal, Lillian votes nay, but the rest of the council is like, no, that sounds pretty good, and they approve it and it passes, and then Lillian has this realization that she does not have as much power as she thought she'd have. Season 3, Episode 3, Kimmy Can't Help You. Jacqueline is trying to win over Russ's dad so she can get him to change the team name, and they have a party planned tonight, and also Buckley is a lot older now. He's all skinny and old and, I don't know, 15.
Morning, Buckley.
Oh, hey, Russ. I thought you were a pile of dirty clothes.
A lady comes by to give Kimmy her divorce settlement papers with the amended agreement that she gets to have half his assets. Evidently, this woman is the woman marrying Rick. Upon learning this, Kimmy eats the papers in an attempt to stop her from marrying Rick because she thinks other people's problems are hers. Russ evidently read up on some Lakota Sioux mythology and folklore and references Iktomi, a wily trickster spider / shapeshifter. Even though Jacqueline is so disconnected from her culture that she doesn't get it, I think it's a very sweet gesture. This is a running theme with these two, is the Iktomi, the spider thing. This is not how they do it. What do? They go like this? Neither of them have nails. I can't do what they do. Anyway, Jacqueline and Russ have a plan to start a big fight to make Russ's father like him more, but it goes kind of wrong when Orson, Russ's dad, announces he's stepping down from being evil and passing his position on to his son, Duke. Russ throws in a Hail Mary and proposes to Jacqueline, and then he accuses his family of not accepting their union because she's Native American. Okay, I originally had the phrase outing here, and then I thought about it, and I'm thinking it might be actually a phrase more specific to outing somebody as gay or trans or something, and I don't think that that is the right phrase here, and I don't really want to keep that there. So I don't really know what the right phrase is, but he, exposes something about her that she really did not give him permission to say to his very terrible, bad, dumb, stupid family. So Jacqueline is pissed about this and leaves without a word. Kimmy, meanwhile, is very much struggling to not yell at Wendy, the woman marrying Rick. Titus insists that she say nothing, sign the papers, and get her money and go to college. Russ runs outside after Jacqueline to apologize or something, and he gets hit and then slowly run over by an electric car and is now in the hospital. Jacqueline is sad. Duke and Orson show up to the hospital and tell her they want her to marry Russ. They think the optics of having a Native American woman in the family will really help public relations. Being like, well, we're not racist against Native Americans. We got one right in our family, you know what I mean? Russ, in his heavily bandaged state, does the spider thing with his hand, communicating that their plan is still on, and she decides to marry him. Kimmy refuses to sign the papers. She has decided she really doesn't want Wendy marrying Rick. She doesn't want to let him hurt anybody else. Wendy is furious, and then she leaves, and Kimmy no longer has money to pay for college. She really didn't need to do this. Who cares about this woman? I don't care about her. She sucks. Anyways, season 3, episode 4, Kimmy goes to college. Kimmy signs her and Titus up for something called Task Rabbit. Titus gets a gig singing at some guy's apartment for $100 an hour. Lillian argues with a man named Artie Goodman, who presents a case to the district council to build a grocery store in Dogmouth. Lillian is the chairwoman of Dogmouth, I think. She does a filibuster to prevent him from building this grocery store. By the way, I didn't ever write it down in my notes, but it's called Big Naturals. Kimmy gets a TaskRabbit task at Columbia University, and she takes it hoping to see Perry again. When she gets there, it turns out the TaskRabbit was for Xanthippy's roommate. Xanthippy is not happy to see her.
Bet. This place is all that. And a bag of chips?
Sometimes I wonder if they had anybody on set who is capable of critical thinking, because there's no way people watched Ellie Kemper say this and said, yeah, that's a good joke, let's put that on Netflix. I feel like the intent with a lot of the stupid nonsense Kimmy says is that for her it's a genuine joke or observation, but for us it's supposed to be like anti-humor, right? I don't know what the intention is, but it isn't funny. It just makes me hate her so much. Like, she's just so annoying. Anyways, Zan is not popular at Columbia because she's rich, and people seem to think her parents paid her way through. Her rowing team roommates are kind of bitchy. Like, they're so mean and rude for no reason. I just hate them so much. Zan's, like, family owns, like, I think her last name is Voorhees, right? Even though, yeah, because her dad's still, it's not like she divorced her dad, you know what I mean? It literally says Voorhees on the outside of her dorm. Like, it's her last name on it. So, not popular. People kind of don't have the best opinion of her. Titus's singing gig is to sing backup for some interesting songs.
Fluoride! Fluoride! Makes children gay. The Supreme Court wears robes to hide their octopus bodies. The CIA invented AIDS to sell quilts.
He sings the songs anyway because, you know, well, it's $100 an hour. The only one he hesitates to sing about is boobs and beers in California. Zan asks Kimmy to bring her some beers to impress her roommates, but they just want to practice rowing. They kind of bitch at her about her rich girl privilege, and Kimmy tries to defend her, but says everything but the obvious, and the obvious is that Zan might be privileged, but she really just wants to be friends with these girls, and they continuously talk down to her every single time she attempts to be nice to them and to befriend them. She's trying, and you're assuming things about her character without giving her a chance. It's so mean. I get that there being a rich girl who's like last name is on the outside of your dorm might be like kind of off-putting, but she's clearly just like this little 18-year-old who's really awkward and just wants to make friends with these girls, and they're so mean to her. Like, I just don't think it's fair. Anyway, Lillian asks Kimmy to bring her some strong tea to help her with the filibuster, but it's chamomile. How do you say chamomile? Vote in the comments. Just kidding, don't comment. But it's chamomile, and Lillian passes out. I don't know why they don't just say chamomile. Like, that's the kind of tea. They call it sleepy time tea. But it's chamomile. Titus decides to really sell the Boobs in California song, and it's sort of a banger. He then vomits into a bucket. Tina, what did I fucking say about vomit? I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to see it, and I certainly don't want to hear it inside of a metal bucket. Gross. I hate you. Don't make me listen to vomit sounds. It's not even funny. It's just gross. What is wrong with you, dude? Anyways, Lillian falls asleep and the grocery store happens, but Artie respects her passion and makes her a liaison. I'm gonna be so honest. I don't know what a liaison is, and at this point I'm afraid to ask. I don't know what a liaison is, but Artie makes Lillian one for the project. Or something, and she gets to say no to things and protect her neighborhood, or whatever. Xanthippe throws bottles at her family crest that's on the outside of the dorm building, hoping to get kicked out of school because she doesn't like being associated with her family and she doesn't want to be here. Instead, the counselors praise her for destroying a crest of privilege. Like, they were like, oh, you were just doing performance art. You were destroying the symbol of your privilege. You're so brave. So nothing happens. Also, Kimmy gets a rowing team scholarship because she's very strong at rowing. 3 weeks later, Titus is performing the Boobs in California song in, I think it was like Tokyo or something. So that's fun. Season 3, episode 5, Kimmy steps on a crack. The FBI asks Kimmy to help them neutralize Gretchen's cult. Gretchen's cult is just a bunch of teenage boys. She's basically just their mother. Also, the whole first female cult leader thing, wrong. I don't know every single cult, and I don't know every single cult leader, and I do agree that most of them are male. But there were female cult leaders before. That's not a novel concept. I don't remember her name. I think she went by T or something, but the Heaven's Gate cult, originally it was the main crazy guy and then his like wife or something, but she was a leader of that cult and then she died. Hi, I'm editing. I didn't properly elaborate here because I'd forgotten about her when writing my script and only remembered her name on the spot when I was filming, and despite what my YouTube history may imply, I actually don't really care about cult leaders, and information about them does not take up space in my brain. Anyways, I was right. Bonnie Nettles, co-founder of Heaven's Gate alongside Marshall Applewhite, did go by the alias T. Applewhite went by Doe, along with a handful of other aliases, as scammers often do, although it's arguable whether they knew they were scammers. Anyways, no, they weren't married. Romantic and / or sexual entanglements were part of their list of no-nos for Heaven's Gate, so I'm not sure why I even thought that. Although she died 12 years before the event that made Heaven's Gate so infamous, she certainly was a female cult leader, even if not a solo one. There were solo female cult leaders, I just didn't Google them at the time. That's really not my job. You can Google it, I don't fucking care. Anyways, or what's her name? I wrote it down somewhere. Ma Anand Sheila, who, oh my god, I don't remember what this particular cult was called because all I remember is what it was called in that one Documentary Now episode called Batshit Valley. Regardless, she was like an Indian woman who became basically one of the leaders of this insane cult that was like next to a small town in like the Midwest America. But again, she was a leader of a cult. She didn't start the cult, I suppose, but she was part of what made it a radical cult. So, no, Gretchen's not the first female cult leader. Anyways, Gretchen decides the only way out is to blow the cult compound up. I don't even know how to describe the FBI's negotiation attempts. I guess the joke is that they're talking to her differently because she's a woman. But again, the joke would be funnier if it was based in something that would even happen in real life. I'm pretty sure a cult leader who's about to blow up a compound with a bunch of people in it is a threat regardless of their gender. This is also, 1, barely a cult, and 2, not funny because it makes no sense. Titus has scurvy. There's no resolution to this plotline. Titus has scurvy. Jacqueline makes corn pudding for some family event with Russ's family, but Duke only wanted the recipe as like a power play over Russ because he's upset that Meemaw gave Russ the recipe and not him. He then kisses Jacqueline. There's no resolution to this plotline, at least in this episode. Kimmy says something about sexism towards female cult leaders, and then she and Gretchen slut-shame Strawberry Shortcake? Rude? I get the criticism. 1, I get the criticism of Strawberry Shortcake's character design, but don't slut-shame her. Rude. Anyway, I get the criticism that, like, the media is overly obsessed with women's appearance. I agree that women in the public eye are often more scrutinized over their relationships with men and their physical appearance than they really should be. You know what I mean? I agree that I feel like a lot of women in the public eye are just constantly, like, people care so much about who she's dating, what she's wearing, what color her hair is, how short she cut it. But that's a really bizarre narrative choice for an episode about Gretchen being a cult leader. Season 3, episode 6, Kimmy's a feminist. I absolutely love this little fox sweater Kimmy's wearing. Honestly, Kimmy's outfits are really cute, but she has like 4 different really nice trench coats, and I need to know where she got them because I can't even afford one. The one I have was a Christmas present and I had to get it in black so it would go with more things. If I could afford it, I would get like a million different colors of trench coats so it could go with like a million different little outfits. Where's Kimmy getting the money for this? Because Uber's certainly not paying for it, you know what I mean? Anyways, Kimmy gets invited to a college party and Zan's roommates say some cringe shit that nobody's ever said ever to anybody ever. She then runs into Perry and she's like, oh, you want to hang out? And he's like, no, I'm literally always busy, like, paying for school and then going to school. He seems a little, like, miffed that it, like, she's just here because, like, it took him years to get into this school and she just walked in one day. Like, it's like a prestigious university.
That was gender normative AF.
Hey, so whoever wrote that, I don't think you should ever write again. But even if you don't, you're gonna have to pay for your sins in hell. Don't write things like that. That is so cringe. Don't write people like that. That was gender normative AF. Nobody's ever spoken like that.
I don't know, what's the joke here? Anyways, the feminism talk in this episode is about the lamest take on college feminism I've ever seen, and I don't really want to sit and talk about it. It's just lame. That's all I have to say. Like, it's so lame. I keep re-recording this because I keep losing my train of thought. I didn't actually explain what the episode's take was on feminism, and the reason for that is that I don't really think it has one. It's like a shadow of a stance that this episode wants to have, but it just keeps using, like, I don't know, like vague references to like young people terminology or something, and this episode has nothing to say. It's just stupid nonsense, and that's it, really. I'm not trying to be dismissive or reductive of what the episode's about. The episode is barely about feminism, and it's just more about Kimmy realizing that she's 30. This is a weird and lame way to write them. Like, it's just like, kids in college, they're always like, that was gender normative AF. Hey, what? I suppose this is funny to boomers, like Tina Fey, but this isn't funny. It's just like lame. Like, it's just like a lame joke. I hate this plotline. Let me summarize it real quick for you. Kimmy and the girls are going to dress up in revealing clothing and lots of makeup and go out partying. That's it. Whatever. Jacqueline is stringing Duke along so she can manipulate him into changing the name of the football team mascot, but she doesn't want to hook up with him, so she asks Titus to come over and, I don't know, make a scene, make Duke leave. Anyways, Duke accuses Titus of being straight and faking being gay to get with Jacqueline, and they like wrestle to win Jacqueline's affection, and then I don't want to talk about this plotline either. Kimmy realizes that all the college students are just babies, and she takes Xanthippe home from the college because it's just weird and cringe. On the bus, she sees Perry again, and they like connect. This episode is getting on my nerves. Let's go back to Jacqueline's plotline. Jacqueline decides the best way to get rid of Duke is to drug him so he'll think he slept with her. Back to Kimmy. Kimmy and Perry kiss, and they have like way more chemistry than Dong and Kimmy ever had it. Oh god. Oh no. Oh no, why? I liked him. Duke isn't fooled by the drugging, and Jacqueline's like, fine, I want you to change the name of the team. And she had taped the sleeping together thing to show Russ, so she could prove to him that she didn't sleep with Duke. And at some point, while Duke's a little inebriated and groggy on the tape, he admits to a lot of damning stuff about the football player brain damage or something, and now she has leverage. The brain damage that football players receive is kind of a shady part of the football industry. Anyway, she has leverage now. Season 3, episode 7, Kimmy learns about the weather. Kimmy becomes frightened by the news' constant fear-mongering about an incoming hurricane, and she tries to stop people from freaking out. Titus learns that his likeness and voice has been used in a commercial for medication for an overactive bladder. I think it was called like Urethrex or something. He realizes he could probably get some money out of this and finds the impressionist they hired to do his voice. The guy says they followed Titus around with cameras to film him so the guy could learn his voice, and now Titus has proof that they're doing this, you know what I mean? So he goes to Urethrex marketing guys, and they say that they did in fact use his voice and his likeness, but he signed a blanket release form at the audition and they owe him nothing. Evidently, more importantly, Titus realizes that the bladder is like the bad guy in the commercial, and then he realizes that he's the bad guy in real life. He is. Kimmy confronts the weatherman, and he's like, yeah, I went a little overboard with like the whole thing, but this storm is genuinely looking very scary and concerning. And Kimmy's like, okay, I believe you. I'm gonna go build a bunker. Lillian manages to stop the building of the grocery store temporarily by convincing the construction guys to go on a strike. She argues with Artie about change being bad, and then after realizing that the changes allowed a subway to be expanded or something, she's like, maybe change good. And then she kisses Artie. Titus says he has a big secret to reveal about what happened on the cruise, and then we get like a big cliffhanger. And then season 3, episode 8, Kimmy does a puzzle. I didn't mention it earlier, but Titus has been pretty cagey about what occurred on the cruise ship. Every now and then he'd imply that he ate someone, that, you know, nothing happened, blah, blah, blah. At some point during the storm, the guilt finally overwhelms Titus, and he finally confesses to Kimmy, Lillian, and Artie exactly what happened on that cruise ship. Titus ate Dionne Warwick. By the way, Artie is there because he was with Lillian when the storm started, and they sought shelter together. Anyways, evidently Titus ended up on a raft with Dionne Warwick after something happened on the cruise, and she begins to taunt him. After eating his paychecks, he eventually ate Dionne Warwick alive. Also, Dionne Warwick is being played by the always funny Maya Rudolph. I love her. She's very funny. And then Artie's like, you didn't eat Dionne Warwick. She's hosting a telethon right now for storm relief. And then they turn the TV on, and there she is, Dionne Warwick, but not really, it's Maya Rudolph. And he's like, ugh. And Titus realizes that perhaps he hallucinated eating Dionne Warwick because he drank seawater. This show has a very annoying predictability when it comes to its humor, and it, especially this like acronym joke. Somebody will say an acronym, and then it'll be like, ooh, and then they'll say what it stands for, and it's like something different than what most people think it stands for. It was funny with the MILF joke because I feel like it was set up in a way. Titus was like, don't tell us what you think it stands for. We already know it's wrong. I think it was funny because it implies a history, but not a history we've seen. Do you remember when I told you that Kimmy decided to quote unquote build a bunker after talking to that weather guy in the last episode? She didn't. This is her bunker. She's just at home with her friends. Okay. Anyways, after realizing that he didn't eat Dionne Warwick, Titus says his soul is unburdened. It very clearly is not, and it's implied that the fire that caused Titus to need to be on a life raft in the first place was maybe kind of his fault. No matter though, he begins to tell the tale of his time on the cruise, being in mahogany with Dionne Warwick. Dionne imparted a lot of wisdom to Titus on this ship, but one of her main things she imparted to him was that baby corns, wet baby corns especially, are good for your singing voice. Anyways, after going down like a water slide on the ship, Dionne Warwick falls ill because the water on the ship is disgusting, like the water in the pools and stuff. And because of this, Titus takes her place in the show. He then ends the story very abruptly on the subject of the fire on the ship. Suddenly, the news starts playing a story about a ship called the Ocean Skank, which is the ship that Titus was on. It is very much not on fire.
The ocean shank didn't skink. The ocean sink didn't shank. The skank kink shouldn't.
The sash ringing, the flash singing, the bash pinging.
After Kimmy realizes that there was no fire on the ship, Titus has to finally tell the actual truth.
If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights?
The ocean skank didn't sink.
Dionne recovered from her illness, to Titus's dismay. He poisons her baby corns with the cruise ship hot tub water so she'll get sick again, but once Dionne realizes what Titus did, he sprays the poisonous water at Dionne to stop her from going on the show. The spray gets in the vents and poisons everyone on the ship. Titus escapes the ship and heads for a lifeboat with his checks and a bunch of wigs. That he ate those. He ate the wigs. It wasn't Dionne Warwick. He ate the wigs on the boat. Kimmy has been growing more and more unhinged over the course of the episode. She's stressed about board game pieces going missing and begins to grow weary of Titus's lying. She's also just very concerned about this bunker not being like an evil bunker like the one she was trapped in. As she starts to reason, maybe help herself make peace with what Titus did on the boat, she realizes that Titus has been stealing pieces from her board games and painting them to use as accessories for his dolls. At this, Kimmy loses her shit, rightfully, and calls him the most selfish person she has ever met. She is so right because he sucks, and she leaves to go stay at Columbia with the rowing team bitches instead. Lillian tells Titus that he needs to ask Kimmy to come back because Kimmy makes them both better people. Kimmy does not owe him or Lillian her presence. She doesn't exist purely as a vessel to make Titus better. Titus needs to learn to work on himself. Kimmy is not his mom or his therapist. He says a bunch of stuff and Kimmy comes back. I don't care, so instead of talking about this, here's my favorite clips of Maya Rudolph's impression of Dionne Warwick.
The number on your screen while I sing this lost gem that was written exclusively for me by one Mr. Burt Bacharach.
She's alive.
When you break up with Leonard Nimoy, you get a bus ticket to Sacramento. Oh, all right. You know, we were trying to do one of them quick changes that they do at a Catherine Perry concert, but I got stuck. But you know what? Wriggling up in here, I'm having a sense memory of my own birth. Just how eager I was to leave the vaginal canal and enter East Orange, New Jersey. You know, some people say global warming is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. But I say, show me the receipts. Because why would Xi Jinping want to flood my basement and rust my Bowflex? To what end? To what end? Joining me now is Tenafly's own Leah Michelle. And we're going to sing an original song that, interestingly enough, was written by no one. Hit it! We're stronger than the hurricane, from Piscataway right up to Wayne. New Jersey's gonna be okay, even though Chris Christie floated away. Thank you, Mr. Bruce Springsteen, for that moving rendition of Rain, Rain, Go Away. I hope it does. I hope it does. Now me and this children's choir are gonna sing That's What Friends Are For with New Jersey specific lyrics.
Season 3, Episode 9, Kimmy Goes to Church. Kimmy wants to apologize to Perry, whom she threw a trash can at when he said he wanted to be a reverend. Titus tells her he'll bring her to church tonight, and they go to church. Can I ask why this choir and/or the extras they hired to clap in the church do not even know kind of what the rhythm is?
I love all the music.
If you want to call it that.
Ooh, is there a black name for it?
No, I just mean this choir couldn't land on a key if it was a seaplane in South Florida.
I don't
care.
There's a female reverend to Kimmy's surprise. Also, Kimmy and Titus meet an older woman who seems to be a bit snippy and controlling of others at church. Her name is Miss Clara. Clara? I don't know. Titus joins the church choir. Unfortunately for him, the director is tone deaf. Miss Clara gently threatens Titus, but Kimmy defends her. She then has a conversation with her at the clothing drive and realizes she is definitely a gossip and a bitch. Kimmy learns women truly can do anything men can do, including being misogynistic. Lillian asks for Jacqueline's help with dressing for a cedar. I don't know what that is. She's gonna meet his kids for the first time, so she wants to kind of look nice. She then decides she hates all the stuff that Jacqueline gave her, so Jacqueline asks her to consider just wearing some nice clothes. But Lillian's like, well, you've got to wear some of my clothes. Jacqueline then wears Lillian's comfy clothes, and I like this plotline because neither of these people talk like Kimmy. Titus and Kimmy set a trap for Miss Clara to show everyone that she actually steals clothes from the clothing donation drive. But then when he's talking to Miss Clara and Kimmy's like in another room, he realizes that the coat that Kimmy thought she took was actually her own coat. It was just like in a box of the donation drive. And also what seemed like a threat to get Titus kicked out of the choir was actually her trying to set him up with her nephew, who's the choir director. His name's Ruben. Jacqueline lost track of the time, and she's like, oh god, now I have to go pick up Buckley dressed like Lillian. She honestly still looks good. Like, I don't know what the big deal is. But anyways, as she's mocked by all the rich people, she realizes she doesn't care what they think. She's a grown adult. She can dress how she wants, and other rich people are stupid and fake, and she knows it. This drives Aubrey from Pitch Perfect insane. Also, am I crazy, or is this line...
There was no robbery. I shot myself.
An allusion to Diane Downs. Back at the church, Kimmy does not know that the plan to expose Miss Clara is off because Titus's text to her did not get to her in time because Miss Clara confiscated her phone. Kimmy gets up and calls her out and makes a big scene, and then she realizes she messed up. And then everyone's like, hey, it's alright, we all make mistakes. We've all got to try to do better every day. And then Titus gets to ham it up in the choir. That's all nice and good. I agree that, you know, people are allowed to make mistakes. This was a very, like, surprising subversion of all this, and I like that. But Miss Clara is a controlling bitch. So, like, I don't think she should be, like, arrested for that, but, like, she is a controlling bitch and a misogynist. Even though she's a woman, she's still, like, I don't know how I feel about a female reverend. It's like, okay, dude. So, I was sick at this point in the day, and I started mumbling. Anyways, I'm gonna re-record this part, so if the audio sounds a little different, it's because I am at a different spot and probably at a different distance from the microphone, and it is a different day and month. Season 3, Episode 10, Kimmy pulls off a heist. I suppose Titus is dating the choir director now, whatever, his name's Ruben. Titus and Kimmy steal a gas station bathroom key because Titus doesn't want to be a paying customer. I don't know. This evidently racks Kimmy with guilt. She continuously has to go in and distract the guy so Titus can go in with his copy of his key to use the bathroom. Jacqueline, meanwhile, attends an NFL meeting in order to change the name of the team that her husband's family owns.
But her blackmail becomes null when Duke is arrested, and it's announced that he is a quote-unquote deranged individual and anything he says should be disregarded. Obviously, Orson had his own son arrested because he's evil, and Jacqueline leaves defeated. Jacqueline soon realizes after, though, that the outrage sales from changing the name to offend even more people would be way more money than just offending Native Americans, and when she presents this argument to the people, it convinces them to change the names, and they change it to like the Gun Takers or something like that. Season 3, episode 11, Kimmy Googles the internet. Did you notice how I skipped over so much of that episode? It's because I hate that episode. Season 3, episode 11, Kimmy Googles the internet. Kimmy runs into Perry again at her French teacher's party. She apologizes for throwing a trash can at him, and he accepts her apology pretty quickly. I love Perry. I'm so glad he's back. Titus's choir director boyfriend has a 1-year-old baby named Linda, and this freaks Titus out. Seinfeld reference.
Out about the baby and looking for a dumb excuse to bail, like you did with Close Talker.
What's he like? He's nice, bit of a close talker.
A what?
I love France. I was just there last year. In fact...
Or man hands.
You have a little something on your face.
I can get it.
No, you're missing it. It's higher. It's an eyelash. Make a wish.
I don't want to.
Make a wish.
Okay. Didn't come true.
Kimmy's French teacher only invites interesting people to her parties. Kimmy is there because she's a mole woman, and she didn't realize that she could be Googled, and so she's upset about this because she didn't really want to be outed like this. Again, I used the word outed here. I don't think that's the right word. Kimmy did not expect for somebody to say this personal thing about her in this setting without her prior knowledge, and it was something that was kind of a sensitive topic for her that she didn't really want to talk about to people that she doesn't know that well. So there's that. She goes to get this very cute coat. I have no idea where she gets all these coats. It's such a cute coat. I love this jacket she's wearing right now is a $56 cling toggle jacket. She doesn't have the money for this. One of my favorite things with like certain coats is like, is it like a houndstooth thing? Where it's like a big tooth-shaped button and you like loop over it. I love that. I don't know why. I think it's fun. And it feels secure. You know what I mean? If she's so poor, I don't know where the hell she gets all these jackets. Perry goes after her and he says he Googled her too, and that's why he accepted her apology so fast. And he's like, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? I didn't realize it would bother you so much. And she's like, I don't know. She's mad, I suppose. I would forgive him. I really like Perry, so that's on a heart. I put a little heart in my notes. Anyways, Kimmy learns all about Google and viral videos. She is horrified by this. Also, she sees a video of her therapist being annoying in public. Jacqueline is stressed by the prospect of taking care of Russ after he was smooshed, and practices taking care of someone by taking care of Mimi Canassis. I hate Mimi Canassis. Titus is increasingly horrified by the concept of baby Linda, and he goes to talk to a bunch of women named Linda at an HR department at some company. The Council of Lindas agree that a baby named Linda is weird, but they also tell him that maybe Ruben just isn't right for him and doesn't want to admit it. Titus is like, you know what, I think you're right, Linda, so he breaks up with Ruben. Kimmy tracks down Andrea. Who the fuck's Andrea again? Oh, her therapist, Tina Fey, sorry. Kimmy finally tracks down Tina Fey and tells her what's bothering her, and Andrea's like, look at it this way, you're free from the secret now. Congratulations. And Kimmy goes back to see Perry rap Shakespeare or Socrates or something. Perry mentioned that he is going to be like rapping Socrates or philosophy or whatever as part of a lesson he's doing, and Kimmy's really excited for him. And she goes to see Perry rap Shakespeare or Socrates or whatever the fuck it was, I don't remember. And all the kids in the class start filming Perry's rapping and he gets embarrassed, but he's just trying to have fun. And also, I'm sorry, I'm a college student. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think everybody in the class would start filming. Like maybe a couple people would, but I generally think college students are pretty good at like empathy with things like this. I feel like they would be like, hey, yeah, he's doing like a fun thing. And although it might be a little cringe, I think a lot of people my age would be able to see what he's doing for what it is, which is an attempt to make it fun. You know what I mean? And he's putting himself out there, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a nice person. Anyways, to kind of help him get his confidence back, Kimmy goes up and raps with Perry, and it makes him feel better.
I love Perry. I hope he stays in the show forever. I just realized I've been saying Daveed Diggs' name wrong. It's Daveed, it's not David. I've been saying Daveed. I'm sorry. I'm white and I'm kind of dumb. Anyways, I think Daveed is a really great actor, performer, and I'm watching the scene back again as I'm editing, and I can't help but smile at how fun and infectious his energy is. Like, he's just a really lovable guy. I think what makes Perry such a great character is Daveed's skill as an actor. He's like a human being? He's the first character to have actual chemistry with her because their conversations haven't been weirdly one-sided. Everyone else in the show is so self-involved they barely listen to a word she or anybody says to them, let alone respond to anything thoughtfully the way Perry does. A great example of this, and one of my favorite scenes in the season, is when they're talking about thought exercises and philosophical metaphors. Philosophical? Is that the right word? I don't know. Anyways, I'll insert the clip here.
Possibly can help me. My friends want me to make a choice, and it's impossible. They both seem equally good or bad, and I'm just stuck in the middle.
Like Buridan's ass. It's a parable about free will. So, if a perfectly rational donkey
That's me.
gets placed between two identical bales of hay, the donkey won't be able to choose one over the other, and so it will starve to death.
That's perfect. I can just starve to death, and I won't have to choose.
But, well, according to Spinoza, the donkey isn't actually rational because making a choice is a good in itself.
Okay. So sometimes the donkey's just gotta choose which pizza it's gonna eat. In my head, I changed it to pizza. Can I do that?
Sure. It's all just a thought experiment. Doesn't even have to be a donkey. It could be a unicorn if you want.
I don't know how to explain it properly, but this is the first time it feels like two characters are actively listening to what the other has to say and giving thoughtful responses. Also, I love the "in my mind it's pizza" thing from, I think, the end of that same episode that I'm talking about just now. Not the one with the rapping Socrates, but with the metaphors and shit. Russ has the bandages off, and since David Cross was busy or something, they recast him as a handsome guy. Kimmy decides to keep doing random stuff until it pushes down the mole woman stuff on her Google search results, because she realized when she Googled herself, now one of the top things is the rapping Socrates thing. So cool. Season 3, episode 12, Kimmy and the trolley problem. Kimmy learns about the trolley problem in her philosophy class and becomes stressed about utilitarianism and how to be a good person. She wants to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people, and although she doesn't really want to talk about the bunker, when Zane asks her to be on her school morning show about women on campus, she agrees to go on to be like a symbol of women's strength or something. Russ has a new face, and Jacqueline becomes concerned that he's becoming selfish and vain and doesn't really care about things anymore. Kimmy's professor explains to her that morality is stretchy, philosophy is dumb, and utilitarianism is just one theory. Jacqueline invites Russ's family over to their apartment to remind him what it felt like to be downtrodden by people again, but they suddenly just love him because he's handsome now. He loves the attention, and Jacqueline has to break up with him because he's just a different person now. The thing is, if Russ only cared about downtrodden people, about people who got the shorter stick in life, about people who aren't treated fairly by the world for whatever reason, only when he was treated like that, only when it affected him too, that's stupid, and Russ is a bad person, and clearly he was never a good person in the first place. He was just ugly. Artie dies. Xanthippy's show is so cute. I love her so much. She's just such a nervous little person, and I don't know. I see so much of myself in her. I just really like Xanthippy. Kimmy doesn't talk about the bunker in the show, and Titus comes on with a bag of wigs. I really summarized this bit because I don't care, but basically, for whatever reason, Lillian thinks Artie is dead because she can't feel a pulse, but then he explains that he has some sort of like heart thing or something. He has heart problems, and so it's not necessarily a pulse, it's like a continuously streaming thing of blood, so he doesn't really have a pulse, I guess, is how they explain it. Season 3, episode 3, Kimmy bites an onion. Kimmy is on academic probation at Columbia, and in order to pass and not get kicked out of school, she has to get 100 on a test. Meanwhile, Jacqueline takes a career aptitude test. Titus is stalking Mikey because he misses him, and he hears the Boobs in California song playing from a car. And Jacqueline goes with him to demand half of the profits from Gordy. Gordy being the guy who was the TaskRabbit guy who made the song. They demand half of the profits that Gordy made from the song. Kimmy doesn't get the grades she needs to not get kicked out of Columbia, and she's upset, I guess, and she decides to go down to the police station to apply to be a crossing guard, because why not? Titus uses his newfound money to try to impress Mikey, but he's way too into his new boyfriend to notice what Titus is doing, so Jacqueline gets him a gig on a boat or something to sing the Boobs in California song. Kimmy is up against another candidate for the crossing guard position. The other candidate is a Yuko robot. She beats the trolley problem that they present to her by sacrificing herself and gets the job, but then she doesn't get the job because she's still legally married to Rick, who's a registered felon. Titus tells Mikey that he loves him in the middle of the Boobs in California performance, and I don't know what he expects Mikey to say to this, but whatever. Jacqueline decides to be a talent agent, and Kimmy gives up. And Lillian's like, no, but helping this little white nerd, and I guess this motivates Kimmy or something. Anyways, Zach, the little white nerd that she goes to college with, has a company, and he hires Kimmy to talk to people so he doesn't have to. Kimmy has a job at this fun little building now. I completely forgot about this. There's a little white guy that goes to Columbia with Kimmy, and we've seen him every now and then. His name's Zach, Z-A-C, and he hires Kimmy to be like his people person who talks to people. And so now she works at this fun little Primary Colors building with a bunch of dogs. There's that season. Oh, I fucking hate it here. Okay, I don't really have individual notes on each character. I find myself just not really caring about the characters or the stories this season. They're all growing, maturing, I suppose. Whatever. One thing I will say about this season is that I did notice the show is beginning to try to grow the characters, point out their flaws, all that. I understand completely that change and growth doesn't happen overnight, not within one episode. It could take years. I think it could take more than a few episodes, and that's understandable. I don't have a problem with characters taking a while to change, although if they're going to be unlikable, I would rather just not watch. My problem here is that if I was supposed to see the characters as flawed and in need of growth, that wasn't communicated well in the show's framing of the characters. Since my main gripe is with Titus, and this season seems to be a lot about Titus growing, let's focus on him. Titus is selfish, inconsiderate, and self-involved, and on top of that, unbelievably stupid and rude. Regardless, he often had stories in seasons 1 and 2 that involved him being confronted with a problem and then overcoming or solving that problem by getting his way. Titus's main conflict is him not getting something he wants, and even if it's something he doesn't deserve and isn't entitled to, he does a bunch of stupid shit, and then he eventually gets his way. This would not be a problem on its own, but framing is everything. When it comes to interpreting and criticizing and analyzing stories, the content itself can be viewed as secondary to the voice of the storyteller. Your story could have Nazis, it could have racism in it, it could have murder, it could have characters that do stupid and selfish things, but it could still be a good story as long as these things are framed properly. For example, when Titus put on his one-man show about Murasaki, the troubled geisha, the story frames him as a victim of self-righteous internet haters who were too sensitive to understand his art. He has to stand up to them, to not back down, and do what's in his heart. If that was all I said about that plotline, you could surmise that I agree with Titus and that I think he's right and deserves to do his show without persecution. When I told you that story earlier, I described these events as part of a larger pattern where Titus feels entitled to a spotlight, to everything going exactly how he wants it, and then getting everything he wanted by the end. This story is particularly frustrating because Titus feels entitled to a story that truly isn't his to tell. I don't care if it's his past life. He has never been a geisha. It's not the life he's led, nor is he really capable of completing the training it would take to become a proper geisha. You could tell by my phrasing here that I do not agree with Titus and that he doesn't deserve the ending he got in the episode. Constantly there are storylines like this, even ones I skipped over because they weren't interesting or important. Titus does something selfish, other characters forgive him, he learns nothing. None of the characters question this, we hear triumphant music when Titus gets what he wants. This is a constant pattern, and even if Titus begins to grow in season 3 and 4, I find myself questioning whether the showrunners intended him to be a flawed person who needs to grow, or if it only occurred to them that sometimes he's the absolute fucking worst. Titus is a bad person. He's the worst in the cast, and I cannot tell if the writers know this. I found his narcissism funny a bit at the beginning. He was a bit relatable in that, I love a diva type, I think it's funny, but I also really love and relate to empathy, which Titus seems absolutely fucking capable of on his own.
Okay, season 4 has 12 episodes, which sounds like a good thing until you remember that there's like an hour-long one. Actually, I think it was an hour and a half. I don't remember. It was terrible. I hated it. Anyways, season 4, episode 1, Kimmy is Little Girl, Big City. I surprisingly remembered a good portion of season 4, and I didn't think I would until I heard this opening song and saw the opening montage here. I don't like it. I don't like the song. I think it's like, again, just trying really hard to be like a genre it's not, where it's like overly aware that it's a show or whatever.
This is the show now.
This coat that Kimmy's wearing looks like a bathrobe. I don't know how I feel about it. Lillian sounds weird in this episode, like she genuinely sounds like an old lady when she hasn't in the past 3 seasons.
Titus, these are Audie's ashes.
Oh, okay, see it.
But whatever. Anyways,
Artie's dead, for real skis this time. Lillian has his ashes and plans to scatter them somewhere today. She doesn't know where yet. Jacqueline seems to be struggling as an agent, and her only client, Titus, is struggling to be an actor or something. Also, his obsession with getting Mikey back is just, it's getting ridiculous. Let him go. What was the point of you breaking up with him and setting him free in the first place if you were just going to immediately become intrusive in his love life? Give him space. You're so annoying. Titus and Jacqueline get the idea to make up a show to make Titus the star of and advertise the fake show with a poster. Meanwhile, at her new job at GizTube or whatever, Kimmy's struggling with the fact that jobs aren't fun. She's the head of HR. Obviously, she's gonna have to fire people, but for some reason, that's just really upsetting for her. You're 30, Kimmy. Anyways, hiring someone with little to no emotional intelligence to be your head of HR is a really bad move. When Kimmy calls Kabir into her office to fire him, she says and does a bunch of stuff that causes him to file a sexual harassment complaint against her. Kimmy's stupidity and obliviousness is growing increasingly tiring. No human being acts like this, even under her circumstances. She has been in the real world for 4 years now. There is no reason for her to be acting like a 4-year-old. It is ridiculous. She is still a grown adult. Mikey calls Titus to congratulate him on being a TV star, and Titus is like, oh, maybe you could help me learn about construction for my role or something. The problem with these two is that Mikey's too stupid for his own good, but genuinely cares about other people's feelings and well-being, and couldn't be cunning if he tried, whereas Titus is stupid but doesn't care about anybody in the world but himself, and will do anything he can to get his way, regardless of who he hurts to get his way. The only difference between their stupidity is that Titus has a lot more experience and knows better than to obsess over Mikey this way. It's ridiculous. Anyways, Jacqueline and Titus plan on staging photos of him on set with Greg Kinnear, and they keep saying computer instead of computer, and it's really, really annoying. Kimmy starts complaining about the complaints that she's getting from the employees at Gizmorph. Titus tells her it's not about her, it's about how they feel, which is surprisingly he's right. He tells her that she's scaring those nerds, and she needs to adjust her behavior to this environment. Not in those words, though. Kimmy realizes that if she was able to learn to respect Titus's boundaries when she moved in 3 years ago, she can also learn to respect her coworkers' boundaries. I feel like I'm nitpicking at this point, but, like, why does Kimmy need to imagine her coworkers as Titus to respect their space? Why can't she just see them as people with their own needs and boundaries? I get trying to be like, how would I treat the situation if it was Titus? Because that's something she's most familiar with. I don't know why Kimmy is suddenly learning at the big age of 30 that everybody as an individual would like their space respected. She has been meeting new people constantly over the past 4 years. There is no way she hasn't learned this. And the only reason that she might not have learned this is because every single person she's interacted with consistently over the last 4 years has been an insane person that is not like any real human being that's ever existed. Therefore, they might not have even communicated to her that they need her to give them space. Which, again, it tells us a lot about the writing of this show, that apparently none of the characters, none of the people Kimmy has ever met in the last 4 years has ever used their fucking words to tell her to back the fuck off. This episode ends with a mysterious exchange of money and a felty orange hand shaking a human hand. I assume this is the evil puppet from that one episode. Season 4, episode 2, Kimmy has a weekend. Jacqueline's getting annoying. I don't like that she treats Kimmy like she's her assistant when she's not. And I was picking up on this last season, and I didn't say anything at the time because I was like, I don't feel like it. But last season, at one point when Kimmy was talking about like the divorce papers with Rig, Jacqueline kept acting like she had completely forgotten about the bunker stuff with Kimmy.
This man put you through hell, cheating on you or whatever.
He kidnapped me.
I said or whatever, but you already have a husband, and he's got some stuff. A jukebox, DJ equipment, a bunker. A bunker? That's weird. For what?
And it was like, I'm sorry, was this not supposed to be one of our main characters? This was like this episode was the only example of Jacqueline acting like she forgot all of this, because at no other point has she just forgotten. It's so bizarre. Whatever. I get the joke. I get that the joke is that Jacqueline is so self-absorbed that like she just doesn't pay attention to a goddamn word Kimmy says to her about her own personal life. I get that that's the joke. But That is an insane level of, like, not listening to people. By the way, I understand that a lot of this video is going to look like I'm pretending like I don't get what the joke is supposed to be so that I can poke holes in it. I get that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I get that the joke is Jacqueline is so self-absorbed, blah, 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 but she's one of the main characters and we're at season 4. At some point, we need them to be people. Otherwise, I don't give a shit what happens to them in their lives. Okay? Anyways, Jacqueline's a grown woman. Treating Kimmy like she's her assistant when she's not is not funny. She can do her own work. Anyways, she's homeless right now because she has no money. She's staying at Kimmy and Titus's place. I like these pants that Kimmy is wearing. What were they? Oh, I remember them. They were like these like jeans and then they had this like cool little rainbow stripe on the side. And I love that kind of thing. I don't know why. I think it's like a very like, I want to say it's like a 70s look where it was like a rainbow stripe on your pants. That's so fun. I don't know why. I just think that's fun. Buckley is coming back from boarding school or whatever, and now Jacqueline is like scrambling trying to figure out where he's gonna stay because she definitely doesn't want him staying with her at Kimmy and Titus's place. She's been subletting her apartment for several months, so she needs to figure out a plan to get that guy out of her apartment so she can have Buckley stay with her there. She'd planned on seducing him and sending him back home, but it turns out that the guy staying there isn't who she thought it was. It was the guy's son, so now she needs a new plan. Meanwhile, Kimmy and Titus get pedicures and Kimmy becomes unnerved by the working conditions of the nail salon and wants to learn the girls' names and help them stay employed. She gets the most expensive thing, which is apparently these atrocious nails that she gets. They're like, they said they're double length, but they're not. Like, that's not what... Okay, anyways... they're also not acrylic. They're very clearly shitty press-ons. They look like shit. Like these terrible, terrible press-ons. Oh my god. Kimmy goes back to the nail salon later and learns that the girls just pick random name tags out of a bowl. They're just random white lady names. And she becomes more concerned about their working conditions. But Kelly, now wearing a name tag that says Vanessa, tells her not to interfere. Titus tells Kimmy that she's white and she really doesn't know what it's like to be those girls. Regardless of what happened in the bunker and the fact that she was in the bunker for 15 years, the world sees Kimmy as a rich white lady. They don't know that about her, and so they treat her better. So, meanwhile, Jacqueline got the guy out of her apartment. His name's Tripp, and he sucks. She got him out of her apartment by casting him in a movie. And Kimmy hears about this, and she's like, oh, you used your white privilege for good, which obviously Jacqueline isn't white, but you know, she's perceived as white. She's like, oh, you used your white privilege for good. Maybe I can do that. So she decides to use her white privilege to get the nail salon owner to let the girls use their real names. Kelly, whose real name is Jinyoung.
Thank you. Jiyeon.
Jinyoung.
The captions spell it J-I-Y-E-O-N. 2 separate words, but they pronounce it like Jinyoung. Like they add like an N sound in there. And I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. But based on the pronunciation of the actors, I'm going to say Jinyoung. Basically tells Kimmy, yeah, good job, I guess. You did something to make you feel less guilty while essentially changing nothing about my job.
Sure. The important thing is you feel good about it.
Kimmy, instead of hearing what Kelly's trying to tell her, says like, I don't know, I've been through more tragedy than you? Kimmy, you did not go through what these girls are going through. The bunker was bad. I think that's one of the worst things that could happen to a person, genuinely. But being one of these nail girls is also bad. You can't say, I know it's not a contest, and then immediately start comparing like it is. I hate this episode. At the end of this episode, Kimmy and Titus run across a documentary about DJ Slizzard, which is Rick's name, I guess. That's his, like, DJ name. Also, oftentimes people call him Dick Wayne. I've been calling him Rick because that's what I feel like calling him, but in the universe, if they don't call him the Reverend, they've been calling him Dick Wayne. Anyways, Season 4, Episode 3, Party Monster, scratching the surface. It differentiates from the other titles because it's supposed to be literally the documentary that Kimmy and Titus watched. It's really annoying and bad, so I mostly skimmed through it. I didn't really enjoy it that much. I don't enjoy the humor of things like this because it feels like it's a dumb, annoying character leading a kind of dumb, annoying story about a dumb, terrible guy. And it's just like, you know, the joke is that he's a bad person, he's kind of stupid, he's out of touch. I don't really get it. I don't like the humor. I don't really it's not for me. It's not funny, I don't think. But this episode really only has like 2 important details in terms of the impact of the rest of the season. It introduces Fran Dodd, who is one of Rick's like followers, I guess. He thinks that Rick is like his best friend, but I don't really know if he is. But he really likes the guy and he looks up to him, and he's like a sort of incel type guy. Also, throughout it, we've been seeing like stock footage that stars Titus doing weird random things. This was set up in the previous episodes with Jacqueline getting him these stock footage gigs that Titus thought were like pornos or something. But that's what they were. They were stock footage specifically for this documentary. Season 2, episode 4, Kimmy disrupts the paradigm. Kimmy is pissed at Titus for being in all the stock footage for the documentary. He knew what it was for. Just to clarify, Titus knew exactly what this was. There were constantly like bits that were very specific to Kimmy's bunker thing. He knew what he was doing. He just lacks empathy. Also, she wants the movie taken down because it was very like, are the mole woman evil? Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, it was like basically a whole thing that was doubting that the whole bunker thing even happened. Anyways, Kimmy's really focused on, she just wants the movie taken down. It's like pissing her off because it's just spreading misinformation. To keep her mind off of this, Lillian encourages Kimmy to go to Pittsburgh for some work convention thing for GizTube. Lillian's coming with her because I think she just wanted to fuck around in Pittsburgh. I don't think she had like a clear motive other than she just kind of wanted to go. I think they just wanted something for Lillian to do this episode. Meanwhile, Titus, a couple episodes ago, was tasked by Greg Kinnear to write a like mini-series or something for them to star in called The Capist. Jacqueline sort of like fusses at him about this because he needs to get this done. Like, he's been looking for capes instead of writing, and it's kind of pissing her off. Also, how is she allowed to conduct a business in Kimmy's office building? Does Zach know? Anyways, she got a role for Titus in the meantime. Titus wants to study the nerds at Gizbomb for his role, but then he realizes they're sort of exactly like him. Like, he was like, oh, I have to be a nerd character. I don't know what that's like. I should go study the nerds at Gizbomb. Or whatever. So he does that, and then he realizes that they were like human beings that are similar to him. Okay. Anyways, at the conference convention thing or whatever, Kimmy meets some skinny white guy and they wander off and party. He says nobody at these conventions use the party rooms, but like, I have a hard time believing tech nerds wouldn't want to party with people that are like them. The party room, the DJ in there is a fan of DJ Slizzard, and he's seen the documentary, and I don't know how to explain what happens. He does this.
You're from that documentary. You're married to DJ Slizzard. What are you doing with this guy?
Wait, no, it's not.
You're married?
It sounds worse than it is. Actually, no, it's way worse than it sounds. Never mind. Thanks a lot, DJ. I hope all your records get scratched.
Oh, they will.
Back at GizTube in New York, Titus has his sudden realization that nerds are human beings. And it's not cute, it's not like funny, and I don't know, was I ever supposed to like this character? He's like the worst person. He has zero capacity for empathy. It's ridiculous. How is this one of the main characters of the show? Back at the convention in Pittsburgh, Kimmy learns that the guy that she's been hanging out with is evidently married. So like, he's bad and he cheats on his wife. And this plotline annoyed me, so I didn't write anything else. Anyways, as Titus is playing his nerd role, which was some, like, kids' assembly play or whatever, as Titus is playing his role, he sees a kid in the audience and picks up on who's the nerd kid, and he kind of feels bad because his character is a stereotype. This is so funny because in this very show, the one that Titus exists in, the nerds that Kimmy works with are also stereotyped cartoon characters, yet somehow that's fine because what? They got to say a few lines to Titus? Lillian's plotline is about technology bad. This episode is a mishmash of dumb bullshit that doesn't make any sense. Don't preach to people at a tech convention about touching grass. You're here for a tech convention. Sit down. Titus is the theater teacher person at this school now. Season 4, Episode 5, Kimmy and the Beast. Titus is directing Beauty and the Beast at this middle school, and he's the worst, but also the kids' excitement to be in the play is, like, really cute. Like, they seem genuinely really excited to do, like, a play. Intellectually and emotionally, Titus is on the same level as these kids, maybe lower. Very bad choice to be directing their play. Jacqueline and Lillian buy all the tickets to the play because they want to see if they can extort the parents out of their money. I don't know. Kimmy goes to the main guy that sucks from that documentary that was Fran Dodd, and they argue or something. He's the worst guy. She arm wrestles him to death and then bashes his head against the table. When she goes to Titus to complain, he makes it about him within 1 minute, which is super fun and likable main character things, I guess. Titus has decided that he is the best person to be playing the Beast in his show. Meanwhile, a young boy named Hudson, very much like Titus, is stuck in the lighting booth, but when Titus hears him sing, he becomes jealous and basically kicks him out and makes him join the wrestling team. Kimmy calls Titus out for basically stealing a spotlight from a kid because it's Hudson's turn to be in a middle school play, not Titus's. He's a grown man. It's not his turn anymore. Jacqueline and Lillian, meanwhile, manage to sell all the tickets, but not to the parents, to a bunch of hipsters. It's a long story and I don't care. The whole thing with Titus is resolved. I don't care. Hudson is the Beast now. Yay, good for him. Unfortunately, Kimmy hijacks the whole thing at the end to say a bunch of irrelevant nonsense. This episode has a bad ending. Aside from, like, the mean-spirited nature of depicting the kids suddenly realizing that none of their parents showed up to see their play, it was just a bunch of hipsters. That's kind of a mean thing to happen to them. And I guess Lillian said that she was gonna laugh at them when this happened, but it's still kind of mean, and I don't like that. But even if that didn't happen, at the end, Kimmy decided as, like, a background character, grown adult, to jump in front of all the kids, say a bunch of dumb bullshit to the parents, as though she was speaking to children. Like, she's been on a mission to, like, try to spread good messages to young boys so they don't grow up and be evil men. I get that, but even if the parents were the people in the audience, what are they learning from this? They're parents. This makes no sense. Kimmy's so fucking stupid. I hate this show. This episode has a bad ending. None of this ended well. I hope Hudson got to play 1,000,000 lead roles. Season 4, Episode 6. Kimmy meets an old friend. Kimmy finds her backpack that got stolen in the first episode. The backpack has a voice. It's really annoying.
Get a pen from inside me!
Like, I could not figure out a good way to summarize the plot. What I wrote was, oh my god, I'm so sick and tired of this episode. Kimmy's backpack is talking. Titus needs to write the capist. Kimmy wants to write a book about the bunker. What the fuck ever. Meanwhile, Lillian meets Artie's kids at his wake or something. I thought she met them at a cedar in that one episode, but I don't care enough to go back and check. She meets his daughter Sheba, who she immediately has beef with, and then at the end of the episode, it turns out Artie actually put in his will that Lillian's in charge of Sheba's trust fund now. So they were beefing because Lillian thought that Sheba was irresponsible and was annoyed that she might be getting so much of her father's money that she doesn't deserve. But now that she's in charge of her trust fund, it's like now Sheba has to be nice to her or whatever. At some point in this episode, Titus had presented a pitch for the capist to those executives, but he was so lazy that he just didn't write it, and Kimmy was like, well, take this draft of my book, nobody gives a shit about it, and Titus is like, okay, and he pitches it, and they're like, what the fuck was that, and they throw it in the trash. One of the guys, his son, finds the draft in the trash, and he calls Kimmy, and he's like, I love this book, it's like really inspiring me, and Kimmy is like, oh my god, I'm like reaching little boys, who's the exact audience I want to reach, because she's trying to reach young boys and basically try to keep them from growing up into horrible monster men like Rick. That's a thing she's doing now because somebody was like, I like your book. She's like, okay, maybe I can make a difference. And now that's part of her arc for this season. I don't care. Season 4, episode 7, Kimmy fights a fire monster. Oh my god, I'm so exhausted by this show. None of this matters, is what I wrote. And the first part of the notes for this episode, and wow, I was really exhausted by this show because none of this matters. Kimmy's trying to get her book into stores by literally hiding copies of it in the stores. And by hiding, I mean she just sets it on a shelf and hopes people will look at it. Meanwhile, Titus starts hanging out with this dude and going on dates with him. And eventually the guy admits, like, okay, look, I'm working for the puppet guy. If you come out about the whole casting couch situation, you're going to be blacklisted. So don't do that, basically. Meanwhile, Kimmy and Donna Maria bond or something. I don't really care about this plotline. Season 4, episode 8, Kimmy is in a love square. Kimmy's newish coworker asks her out, but she's more interested in hanging out with his parents than him. Is this not the plot of that one New Girl episode? Whatever. At some point, Kimmy and Jacqueline are at the Gizmouth coffee station, and Kimmy takes a sip of a cup of coffee that I guess she made for herself. When she drinks it, she immediately spits it out and screams like a toddler, probably because it doesn't taste like sugar syrup. If you don't like coffee, that's fine, but I'm getting increasingly annoyed with Kimmy acting like a baby. Also, this plotline kind of has gross innuendos about Kimmy having some sort of illicit affair with this guy's parents, and I don't know who this is funny to. Like, if it was just a couple one-off jokes, I wouldn't really even say anything, but it's like the entire plot, like it's the whole joke, and I don't find it funny. Like, it's just kind of annoying. I get that that's the joke. The joke is like, obviously she's not doing anything sexual with them. It's just they're playing board games and stuff because she wants parents. But it's the same joke over and over, and it's never funny. It's just kind of uncomfortable to me. Titus considers speaking up publicly about Mr. Frumpus, who's the sex offender puppet. I'm still a little confused. I don't know why the show keeps presenting this situation as though it's Mr. Frumpus, the puppet, who is the sex offender, and not the guy puppeting him. Like, maybe that's, like, part of a commentary.
Okay, so I didn't elaborate on this in the moment, and I meant to. So by a commentary, I meant perhaps the show, by depicting this puppet as the perpetrator and not actually the man doing the puppeteering, perhaps they're saying, like, sometimes we don't place enough blame on the systems that enable this type of behavior, and instead we focus on the individuals who take advantage of others. If that is what they're trying to say, that's kind of a bad analogy. The puppet is not a real individual with free will, but regardless, the individual with free will does deserve just as much blame for sexual misconduct as the industry that enables it in the first place. I doubt that's what they're saying with this, though. I just wanted to pop in and say, maybe. I'm aware that that could be what it is. I think it's just surrealism. Back to me.
But I don't really think this show is willing to do any sort of complicated commentary on anything. I just think it's weird that, like, Mr. Frumpus is the one doing this. And again, that falls into the more, like, bizarre, surrealist nature of this show, where it's kind of like, it won't outright, like, embrace the surrealism half the time, because it wants you to think it's so grounded and about real life subjects, but it's not. It's just nonsense. We just keep dipping into weird nonsense like this, and it's bizarre when it's about such a serious topic. Jacqueline insists that he stay quiet after seeing what happened to Coriolanus when he told his story. Eventually, Titus does, and Coriolanus is no longer blacklisted. A very nice thing for Titus to do, I suppose. Season 4, episode 9, Sliding Van Doors. I hate this episode. It was so long. Buckle in. I hate this episode. This episode, it's like It's a Wonderful Life. Basically just if Kimmy wasn't kidnapped and then Titus missed his Lion King audition. Kimmy says the day that she got kidnapped, she was supposed to see Sliding Doors, but then she was like, no, I'll help the Reverend find this nursing school. He asked, basically the way he kidnapped her was he pulled up in his van and he like was like, hey, little girl, can you help me find the nursing school? And she goes, no, I can't just tell you, but I can get in the car and lead you there, and then that's how she gets kidnapped. So basically it's like in an alternate timeline, she would have said, no, this is suspicious. So she sees Sliding Doors. Meanwhile, Titus, after having just ran out on his wedding, as we discussed earlier in season 2, he basically like was eating a bunch of like old deviled eggs from the wedding, and that was all of his food, and it's really gross. And he misses the audition for whatever reason, and he vomits on Jacqueline, who's about to go to a job interview in New York. 8 years later, Kimmy's like 23-ish, and she's queen bee of a group of girls who just left a movie theater showing of The Butterfly Effect. Kimmy graduates college as a valedictorian, and in this timeline, about 20 women are kidnapped by Rick, and it's implied that Kimmy was the reason he only kidnapped 4 women because she stood up to him and challenged him. Also, during her valedictorian speech, Kimmy gets hit by a car. Titus is in cosmetology, the cult, with Gretchen, which is like Scientology but in New York. Jacqueline hooks up with Mikey in this timeline, believing him to be a rich real estate developer. She becomes pregnant, is now stuck with him, and it turns out he's actually just a poor construction worker. So now that's their life. Fun. Lillian is now a gang leader. Jacqueline and Mikey live in Kimmy and Titus's apartment with a bunch of kids, and they are very dysfunctional and poor, and things are bad. After being in a coma, Kimmy decides to stay in Indiana as a local newscaster with her good-for-nothing boyfriend, now husband, Brian. She's also a bitch now. Anyways, she catches him cheating with Donna Maria, who's their maid in this timeline, on live television, and decides to leave for London. Now she's on a plane. Jacqueline is also on this plane as a flight attendant. Trump impressions were overplayed like years before this, but whatever. Jacqueline causes Trump to have a heart attack, and they can't go to London now. They have to stop in New York because like somebody's in a life-threatening situation. At some point, Titus like tried to branch out from cosmetology, and he's a famous actor now, but it turns out he's just like connected to cosmetology, much like Tom Cruise. We get the reference, we get it, okay? Anyways, Titus is a famous actor in New York now, and Steve Buscemi is the one wearing the knockoff Iron Man costume and handing out arcade flyers like Titus was in the first few episodes of season 1. Also, Titus's stage name is Jack Straightman in this timeline. Like, Titus is not his name in this timeline. It's Jack Straightman. He's not out publicly, but he does hook up with Mikey on the side in this timeline, which lands him in enough hot water with the Church of Cosmetology that he needs to get married to a woman fast. He sets his sights on Kimmy. Meanwhile, Lillian goes to jail, and Kimmy and Titus get married and then are murdered by this guy off screen, which is a reference to this scene earlier.
You're not the cable guy. Get out of here, you crazy!
Fine! You know what? I was gonna murder you guys!
Season 4, episode 10. Kimmy finds a liar. That guy that Kimmy beat the shit out of earlier, Fran Dodd, is now posing as Kimmy to do a book reading at the bridal store he works at. When she confronts him, he admits that he lied to impress a woman that he works with, and although he's still a little bad in the head...
K.C. Schmidt? I didn't know. Usually K and C are boys' letters. The girls' letters are V, Q, A, and M because N is her son.
That's insane! The vowels are the girls!
He does tell Kimmy that her book changed him, and he's actually stopped doing a lot of the terrible shit he did, and has stopped associating with Rick entirely, which is pretty cool of him. Jacqueline gets Titus a gig being in a fake PR relationship with a straight guy who needs to look gay to the public for whatever reason, and he goes on a double date with Tad, the straight celebrity guy, and Mikey's boyfriend. The entire time trying to make Mikey jealous. Again, grow up. Lillian and Sheba, remember Artie's daughter from earlier, are going back and forth about Sheba wanting money for stupid things, but in the end Sheba learns an important lesson about taking responsibility for your actions. Or something. Meanwhile, Mikey proposes to his boyfriend, Andrew, whom he's been dating since the boat episode, I think. Obviously, to Titus's horror, I don't know how to describe what happened here, so here's a clip.
You know what I can't do? This. Sorry, dude. I don't even know you. And also, I'm in love with my wife. I don't care if it ends my career. I can't live this lie anymore. So, let's see what's going on anywhere else.
Every time I say here's a clip, I feel like Jack's films when he did YGS, back when he did YGS, he would be like, here's the last episode, here's a clip, and he would do that. Kimmy finds out that Fran is actually still hanging out with his garbage friends and tells him that even if he is trying to be better, he needs to show that with his actions, not just with his words. By hanging out with these people, he's still showing the world that he does not care about women, and he's still gonna hang out with these guys. Regardless of what he believes, supporting these guys, even by being physically at this stupid little protest thing, is doing just as bad even if he doesn't believe it. You know what I mean? So in response, he does this. Anyway, season 4, episode 11, Kimmy is rich. asterisk exclamation point. We don't really find out exactly what that means. I guess just saying no, she doesn't actually become rich, which she doesn't. Anyways, Zach, whose name was apparently spelled with an H this whole time, tells Kimmy that he's selling Giz's mom for a lot of money and that they're gonna be rich. I sort of respect Zach for caring about Kimmy. She tells him she wants to quit so she can travel the world, which happened in the last episode, not this one, but whatever. And he's like, why don't you wait till next week so you can get your payout? I don't expect characters in this world to actually be kind and thoughtful of one another, so that was a fun surprise. Anyways, Titus tells some random child that he wants to be in the musical Cats, and we get the first joke that's actually made me audibly laugh in a while. I'm a triple threat. I can sing, I can act, and I found a gun!
I am a triple threat. I can sing, I can dance, and I found a gun.
I think just saying I have a gun is a funny sentence to me, and that's not actually funny. And the fact that that's funny to me means that if I say something's not funny and you thought it was funny, that doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you're stupid. Because look at what I find funny. Really, truly, don't fucking listen to me. Except when I want you to, then you should. This entire Cats thing feels like it was made by someone who Googled what Cats looks like on stage and then had the general vibes described to them secondhand. I wish they'd have licensed the rights to at least one song for this scene because this musical doesn't even kind of sound similar to Cats. At least do like a sound alike, I don't know. Cats is actually not that hard to understand, and I don't really like that the show pretends like it's some big mystery what Cats is. You can Google it. Titus dresses up as a cat's cat so he can sneak on stage in the middle of a musical number and announce himself. Apparently that is actually how Cats the musical works in this universe. You can put on a cat costume in the middle of a number, make up a name, and be like, I'm Garfield the lasagna cat. What was that one Yaya episode where he says that? I don't remember. Anyways, that's how Cats the musical works in this universe. You can just do that. Titus tells Jacqueline this, even though he is not supposed to, and then she tells Greg Kinnear, and then when Greg goes on stage and is welcomed into Cats, they find out that Titus told him, and he's excommunicated. That joke works way better on paper. Also, Jacqueline is Greg Kinnear's agent now. I forgot to mention that. Jacqueline is Greg Kinnear's agent now. Meanwhile, Kimmy finds out that GizTube is a data mining company, and she's upset about this once she figures out what data mining is. So she blackmails Zach into using data mining for good. Basically, she wants to market her book to boys who Google boobs or something. So she has him create her a website where her book is sold, which, again, like, I don't have words for how annoying it is the way all of the main characters in this show just don't know shit about computers. So I'm just gonna play the clip of Zach expressing it.
Is there a hyperlink I can embed for click-through? Where can people buy your book?
You're also making me one of those internet buying places.
A website? Jesus, you never should have worked here.
Season 4, episode 12. Kimmy says goodbye. We're almost done. We're almost done. I'm so excited. Kimmy, Titus, and Lillian's home/sideways tugboat is at risk of being demolished by the city. And meanwhile, Jacqueline gets Titus a gig as an understudy for Rafiki in The Lion King on Broadway. And he really wants to kill the woman already playing Rafiki. That's not really that important, but you should know it because he's a terrible person. Also, Mikey calls and asks Titus if he could sing at his wedding. And I don't know why Titus says yes, because he really just needs to get over Mikey and move on, but whatever. Anyways, the understudy thing gets in the way of Titus singing at Mikey's wedding. He needs to play Rafiki because the woman got sick. And Kimmy goes to Mikey and is like, Titus can't make it, and we find out that Mikey actually wanted Titus to be there so he could make a scene, so he could not marry Andrew because he actually still wants to be with Titus. Mikey is so fucking stupid. Why wouldn't you just communicate this to Titus? A competitor agent is like into Jacqueline, but only professionally. Also, he's blind. Also, he's into her romantically. I don't actually hate the pairing, so I'm fine with this. Xanthippe is a mature young woman who holds herself much more confidently now, and I love her for it, honestly. We see her again, and I'm like, she's so different and, like, adult now. And I'm happy for her. Anyway, she says something that makes Kimmy realize that she's been reading her book, and Zan's like, yeah, everybody at Columbia is reading it. And Kimmy's book, turns out it was a success this whole time. Titus and Mikey are together now. Okay, Titus sings The Circle of Life like he did in the first episode. I'm sure this montage would mean more to me if I like these characters. Anyways, skip to 4 years later, the newscaster just said it's June 27th, 2023, which is insane because I was quite literally writing the script for this video on June 27th, 2023. That's insane timing for me to be finishing the script for this video. Anyways, Lillian does the voice announcements for the New York subway station now.
Hey, the doors will be opening on the wrong side of the train from now on. Good luck, you honky sons of bitches.
I don't know why, but she does. We see Titus and Mikey on the red carpet for the premiere of Titus's film debut, which is Sliding Doors 2. Also, Jacqueline is dating that other agent guy, and she's wearing dresses that could be shirts, which is super fun for her. Kimmy, meanwhile, is at the grand opening of a ride at Universal Studios based around the book she wrote, and presumably the franchise that spawned from it. That's the whole thing. That was all of it. That was all of the show. That was all of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Hi, so let's chat a little, and by chat I mean I'm gonna tell you some stuff. So I'm aware that it's weird for me to make a video, such a long video, in fact, about a show I clearly hated, but I actually didn't know I would hate it this much when I started the project. I was actually a little bit more positive. I noticed when I was watching back the earlier seasons, and me talking about it, I feel like I was a lot more positive. I feel like I pointed out jokes I liked more. I feel like I was just a lot nicer in general to the show in seasons 1 and 2. Part of that is because any negative opinions I began to have as I got to seasons 3 and 4, I didn't know I would have those yet because I hadn't seen seasons 3 and 4 when I was talking about season 2. When you see me talking to you about a season, I have only seen that season and the ones before it. So I felt like that would be a fun way to see how my opinion might change over time, rather than me sitting there in season 1 telling you how much I dislike Titus because of how annoying he began to be in seasons 3 and 4. You can see how maybe a first-time viewer might feel as they start the show. And I think that's more interesting personally, and I feel like it helps me be a little less biased about later episodes when talking about early episodes. On that, you might have noticed that I found Titus's narcissism kind of funny at the start. I found Jacqueline pretty down to earth when it came to her character moments. Titus was always selfish, but I had hoped that he would eventually do something that wasn't like completely self-serving. I had hoped that he would grow as a person. He didn't. Jacqueline had like a purpose in seasons 2 and 3. She was trying to do something for her family and for Native Americans, which I felt like made her a lot more grounded and likable. For whatever reason, she just gave up and became self-involved and probably forgot about any of her goals in season 4, which that feels like regression to me more than anything. Titus doesn't grow. As I said, his obsession with Mikey is justified magically by the reveal that Mikey wanted to be with him all along. That's all well and good for them, I guess. But as far as the audience is concerned, up to that point, Titus's entire existence in season 4, and I think like the latter half of season 3, revolves around a one-sided infatuation with his ex-boyfriend. Quick pause. I'm not sure where to put this in the script, so I'm inserting it here. I'm the most critical of Titus as a character, I feel. Not because I hate Titus, but because he's often the best and most front and center example of what I dislike the most about our main characters here. Not only is his selfishness grating at times, and by at times I mean literally all the time, but he's often rewarded by the plot despite being objectively in the wrong. No, actually, he doesn't deserve a big dramatic spectacle where everybody's paying attention to him at Mikey's family dinner where Mikey's coming out to his family. That is not what he should be learning from that story. He should not learn that actually he deserved to get the big spectacle he always wanted. This is not about him. It's about Mikey and his family. None of it had to be about Titus. He barely had to be there. Anyways, I feel as though I come off as very harsh towards Titus, and I hope it's clear that all of my issues with him are actually with the writing and not with any of his actor, Titus Burgess's performance. I think he does a fabulous job with everything that the script asks of him. He delivers each line with this perfect, entitled look in his eyes, and he's just objectively very good at this character. The problem is that his character arc is awful and he's a villain. He doesn't learn very often. Titus Burgess, I cannot stress enough, is not the problem.
The way that he delivers each line is so perfect. He is so good at flipping back and forth between like ridiculous, huge, dramatic baby or like babysitter for Kimmy. This character is very much real to this guy. He is so convincing that sometimes he doesn't even feel like a character being played by an actor. Every goddamn word that comes out of his mouth sounds like it came from his brain and his alone. And one of my favorite Titus moments actually is when, in season 3, when he like walks onto Xanthippy's show, he's got a big bag of wigs and he's doing this like stupid like cable kids show voice.
You know, growing up in Mississippi, you sure do meet a lot of characters.
And it is so silly and bizarre and funny that it almost feels like it came from a show with good comedic timing and not this one. Something about it is so funny because at no point does Titus actually express in this episode that he wants to be in this show, that he has this bag of wigs, or this character, or that he even wants to do any of this. It feels like it's something that only Kimmy knew that he wanted to do. It comes out of nowhere. He just walks on with all of this prepared, and it is so funny to think that he had this in the can for so long, and he was like, yes, I have a cable TV show to do this on now. It was very silly, and I do think it was one of those absurd moments that actually worked. The rest of the cast will get no praise from me. You all did fine, I guess. Ellie Kemper is quite simply just not a good lead, and everything she does, I find it very infuriating. I just don't like Ellie Kemper that much. I'm so sorry. Jacqueline is not a difficult character for any white lady to play, sort of. And honestly, Lillian's actress was just not playing a character. This is her. This has been her since the 90s. I don't know who she is in real life, but this character is not something of Tina Fey's creation.
I am walking along, minding my own business, when all of a sudden this thing comes flying out of nowhere and clonks me right on the head. Wow. Yeah, so they took me to the hospital.
Yeah?
Yeah, and they put me in this thing that feels like a coffin for 45 minutes. You ever been in one of those things? You could go berserk in there.
This is a character that this woman has been playing since, I don't know, Scrooged? Maybe before that? Was Scrooged before or after that one Seinfeld episode? And was that one Seinfeld episode one of her first acting roles? I don't know, I'm not looking into her career. I'm just saying, this is not a unique character for this woman to be playing, and it's just the character she plays. You could not have cast her to play anybody else. It's almost like they just asked her to come on and gave her, like, I don't know, an idea, and she said, okay, I'll do that shit I've been doing since the 80s or 90s or whatever. Anyways, before I say all my final thoughts and ramblings, I want to reiterate that these are my opinions, and if you disagree, and if you really like this show, that is so great, and I'm happy for you. Although I doubt this video will have enough reach to find someone who disagrees with me and also made it this far. Moving on. Why did I dislike this show so much? Why did I? It's not just that it's bad. I've enjoyed plenty of bad things. It's not just that I wanted to dislike it. I went into Zombies thinking I'd hate it, but I actually got sucked into the fiction because I really enjoyed the earnestness of it, at least of the actors. I have no idea how sincere the adults involved were. It's also not because I'm mad at a woke liberal agenda. I found the commentary and jokes about social issues stupid because they were presented in such an outlandish, absurd way that it wasn't even about real, actual things that exist in the real world anymore. That's it, I think. That's part of the reason, at least. The show does this thing where it pretends to have all these stances and opinions and statements, but they're either weak sauce nothing or they come off as weak sauce nothing because the show isn't connected to reality in any sort of tangible way. It's one thing to be like, women aren't taken as seriously as men in certain circumstances, and it's another to be like, the FBI sends a gay bestie to calm the hysterical woman with a bomb. That's absurd! It's absurd that Gretchen would come to this conclusion. It's absurd that trained FBI negotiators would do something like this. We're stretching reality so far again. We're pushing it beyond the scope of what, like, a real person could relate to. What are you even satirizing at this point? The fictional FBI that you made up? In a better show, I feel like they could have done something like this in a more subtle way. Maybe the guys would be like, oh, maybe she's pregnant, or speculate about her doing it for the affection of men. Maybe, if you want to push it, they could be like, oh, here's another hypothetical FBI guy that we know is gay. Hey, gay guy, you're better with women. Maybe you could talk to her. I don't know. I still really wouldn't like that, but like it could depict, you know, these types of men who should be professional, and these situations still managing to just be idiots. And it wouldn't be so absurd that it would be like, hold on, where are we? That would get a similar point across without becoming so ridiculous that it doesn't feel like the real world anymore. Also, aside from that, I cannot stand media tropes about gay men being treated as pets for straight women, and since this is actually not relevant to anything they're satirizing in this scene, I'll take that as tacit endorsement of the trope. Gross. This show's satire is a twisted, tangled mess, so tangled that whatever the original intention was sort of gets lost. If the intention was to also mock tropes about gay men treated as pets for straight women, maybe don't present this guy as like a random prop being stored in an FBI van. I don't know how to explain this. It is too many levels of weird nonsense. It is nonsense to the point of what are we even talking about anymore? We started at female criminals are not respected as much as their male counterparts by law enforcement. Okay, I mean, that's not really something I have a lot of knowledge on or experience with, so if that is a common thing that happens, okay, I think that could be a reasonable thing to make a joke about, especially in this situation. Then we get to these FBI people are not taking a woman with a bomb very seriously. Like, they keep acting like she's their wife, that they just don't get why she's mad. Okay, I mean, alright, I still wouldn't find that funny, but I could see where that sort of joke was coming from, I guess. Then we have, I don't remember, there was a handful of other jokes in this scene, I'm sure, but the one that stuck out the most was, why is there a gay man treated as a prop in the back of this van? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Can I ask where that came from? In this universe, are there just like human props in FBI vans that can just like pop out and go do that? Why? I don't understand where this came from. And this trope is already just annoying. I just don't like this trope. It's just stupid. So to present it without questioning it at all, just like having it there unquestioned, I'm gonna take that as tacit endorsement because you haven't given me any commentary on that. And even if you did, what does it have to do with anything else that's happening in this scene? If you want to make a satire about real world issues, your show has to take place in the real world or is comparable to the real world in some way or has issues that are comparable to real world issues. I cannot take anything this show has to say seriously because this show isn't interested in grounding itself anywhere, and the fault lies a lot with many things, but right now we're going to talk about where it might lie with the characters and dialogue as well. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt has some of the most frustrating and annoying character dynamics I have ever experienced in a TV show. I'm going to sit up straight and I'm going to move my microphone up a little bit. Everyone is so stupid and unlikable. Nothing about these dynamics are something you'd ever want to experience. And although there might be fleeting moments of like actual comedy you could relate to, those moments are immediately undercut by just complete and utter nonsense, and not the good kind. There's no voice of reason. Nobody has to be the voice of reason all the time. And in fact, I enjoy character dynamics where the voice of reason is tossed back and forth between different characters, but nobody in this show is reasonable, ever. I'm going to take a moment to compare this show to two sitcoms I quite like, Community and Seinfeld. These shows dabble in pretty ridiculous circumstances and characters that are objectively kind of terrible people, so I don't think the comparison is out of line. Community is full of crazy, wacky stories that are kept grounded and real by the love between these 7 best friends and Pierce. No, not all of us have been in a conflict with our friend over some ridiculous film about Abedish Jesus trying to do some weird Inception bullshit, but haven't you ever let yourself be seen as the bad guy to protect someone you love? Haven't you ever swallowed your pride and just done something the way they wanted it against your better judgment, just to show them you care? And there's other episodes that I could use it as an example, but this is one of my favorite ones. Seinfeld's stories are often about bad people doing bad things, but oftentimes it's relatable because these bad things are bad things we've either thought about doing or even done and just like haven't really told anybody. If you find yourself wanting to pull into a parking spot and some other guy starts to back into the same spot, you're likely to just maybe honk to tell him to back off, and if he doesn't, your rational adult brain should tell you that this is not worth rear-ending someone over and to cut your losses and find another goddamn spot. Although, in New York, maybe
it's different. But there might be a selfish part of your brain that's telling you to stand your ground. Who does this guy even think he is anyways? That's George Costanza. That's the little voice in your head. Someone told him to pick his battles, and he decided to pick every single battle that was presented to him. Objectively, he kind of sucks for this. This is a ridiculous thing to put your entire evening on hold for. But like, don't you ever just want to stop and stand your ground when a stranger pisses you off, even when you know it's not worth doing any of this? Characters in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt might make individual good points, but only under absurd circumstances that could only happen in their world, not in the real one. What keeps this show in any way grounded? What rhyme or reason is there to the things that happen? These situations are absurd, and the characters are absurd, and none of them ever do anything nice for each other, nor do any of them actually act rationally. Obviously, there are small moments here and there, but the actual show itself isn't built on any fundamental principles of what I, Lily, all knower of good fiction, would call a well-written sitcom.
Hey, what's this?
Oh, that's a lampshade.
What's it for?
Well, when you find yourself making criticisms about something so subjective as comedy, you have to write in a line in your script that makes it clear to the audience that you're aware of the fact that you're not actually the authority on what makes something good or bad writing, or what's funny or what isn't, or just what's good fiction or what is not. By calling attention to this fact, it actually makes me immune to any and all criticism.
I don't really think that's how a lampshade works.
Shut up and give me my lamp back.
I'm also all knower of literary devices. Fuck, how do I get this back on the table?
I gave examples for Community and Seinfeld, and I'll give you a couple for Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt too. The Cats episode is absurd, and it could be funny, but there's nothing anchoring it to any real-world, relatable experience that any average person could have. Why would anybody argue with a random child? Why would you sit next to him in the theater and keep arguing? Why would you jump on stage to prove this random child wrong? Cats doesn't even kind of work like this. Why would Greg Kinnear do this? No step of the way is this something real. Other than, like, maybe you could be stubborn sometimes, but, like, where in that equation would anybody jump on stage and do Cats? The main premise is insane. Yeah, this does happen to people. This has happened to people, but none of them act like Kimmy when they get out of it. They don't stay in a state of being stupid and lacking any social awareness. I don't really enjoy these survivors of literal kidnapping and long-term psychological and possibly physical abuse being portrayed as stupid, naive, and lacking any social awareness. It borders on mean-spirited sometimes. None of them deserve this, and the Sliding Doors episode almost portrays Kimmy being kidnapped as something for the greater good. I'm all for accepting things the way they are. The things in the past happened for a reason. We can't change the past, and we shouldn't try. But in no way should we be acting like Kimmy's kidnapping was in any way a good thing. You know what would be a good thing? If Rick died of carbon monoxide poisoning in his bunker, never to hurt or speak to anybody ever again. I'm sure that the writers were not intending to say it's a good thing that Kimmy was kidnapped. Rather, I think their thesis was, you can't change the past, and that's okay. I don't care. It's like how in The Cursed Child, which I think was the canon sequel, stage play, book, or whatever to the Harry Potter series, it's revealed at one point, I believe, that if Cedric didn't die in the Triwizard Tournament, he would lose and then would have become a Death Eater.
Harry Potter's son goes back in time using a time turner in order to save the life of Cedric Diggory, and he saves Cedric's life by making him lose the Triwizard Tournament, meaning he doesn't touch the portkey at the end and so isn't present at the end of the Goblet of Fire for Voldemort to order his death. And as a result of losing the Triwizard Tournament, Cedric is so embarrassed that he becomes a Death Eater. He was actually only one bad day away from becoming a fascist murderer, and it's good he died.
Cedric was one bad day away from becoming a wizard Nazi? This retroactively makes Cedric a bad dude. Why would you do that? Why would you tell us it was a good thing for Cedric to die? I'm not even a huge Harry Potter fan. I need to get back on track. Before I harp on some larger criticisms of the show's premise, I do have some thoughts on maybe why the characters didn't work for me, at least. I think when you're going to have an ensemble cast, you need to make it really believable why they choose to spend time with one another. Kimmy and Titus are roommates, but ultimately I'm supposed to believe that they're friends, and they choose to live together. I'm supposed to believe that all of the characters are good friends. It's just that often they don't act very kind towards one another, and there's not much listening going on. When there is an act of kindness done, it seems more to serve the plot than to strengthen the bonds between the characters. So not only are they individually pretty bad people, or at least unlikable people, they also just don't really make sense together. The dynamics don't bring out a lot of humor, they all clash in their own ways. Here's how I see it. If the show is not about the characters growing together as friends, if there is no real love or soul there, then there has to be something that links them intrinsically together as individuals and friends that predates the show itself. So let's go on that first thing. If the show is about them
meeting and growing together as friends. Community is about people who met in the pilot, like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, so I think this is a fair comparison for me to draw. They're all really different people, yet they meet together in this one moment under the guise of a Spanish study group, which is something that our central character Jeff made up just to hook up with Britta. These aren't pure intentions, and honestly this is a pretty elaborate lie that I don't think many people would find relatable. Besides that, Community just has a really slow start, but this inception point of 6 best friends and Pierce, I guess, coming together is really important to this show. Community is a lot of things, I mean a lot, but Johnny, please don't move my mouse around. It goes everywhere. There's a lot of weird, strange directions that it takes, but at the end of every episode, at least 2 of them become closer. At the end of the day, there is at least one bond between 2 characters being strengthened, usually more, but at least 2 characters become closer and understand each other more as individuals. And they choose to do the things that they do together because they're friends. The audience understands this because of their actions, not just because they say they're friends all the time. They are consistently thoughtful and kind to one another, and they constantly are learning how to make kind decisions for each other's sake. They are constantly making selfless decisions without even the others knowing. Only the audience knows sometimes when characters make selfless decisions. And that is the point. The point is that it's about love, okay? Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is not interested in sentimentality. At least I don't think so. If the intention was to be sentimental, wow, that didn't work because we were more focused on the comedic value of people being selfish and self-absorbed. So, if we are not interested in that sort of love and sentimental moments like we have in Community, we're more focused on characters that are linked together because they're just supposed to be, I'm going to point us to Seinfeld, which is a show that is not at all interested in the love between characters, sort of. Seinfeld's core cast is made up of 4 characters. Jerry Seinfeld, his childhood best friend George Costanza, his ex-girlfriend Elaine Bennis, and his next-door neighbor Cosmo Kramer. These relationships all predate the pilot. We can tell that these characters are all close friends. It's not really understood from like super sweet, kind acts towards one another, but the fact that they're always on the same side, I guess is the best way for me to put it. Since they've all known each other before the show even started, I don't need to see them strengthen their bonds. The show isn't about friendships, it's about nothing. I'm having a hard time articulating this properly, but I think Seinfeld's focus on the mundane often gives us moments where we see the characters do something boring together, or do something quiet together, or do nothing together. Elaine wordlessly making George give her a bite of his sandwich while Jerry's talking to them. When the buzzer was broken in that one episode and Jerry's talking to Elaine from his window while she's on the street. This little moment where George and Kramer is singing, "I like to shop at the duty-free shop" in the car. These moments aren't really that important to the story in any sense, but they're like little character moments where I feel like the audience can tell they're friends, but they don't need big moments to even say it. We just get it. Friendship is about doing dumb things together sometimes. So much of Seinfeld just has moments where like they are so comfortable with one another that we don't need them to be sentimental because they don't ask that of each other. So if Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt isn't interested in the sentimental stories about friendship, and honestly it just doesn't seem like something Tina Fey's writing lends itself to, I think the other way it can communicate to the audience about friendship is in these small, boring moments together, even if it's just the way a scene starts. I think honestly I'd like the show a lot more if we got small, silly moments where the characters are just enjoying each other's company without talking about their storylines. We can't have that either. There's very rarely moments like this. Often, a scene will start with a character doing something alone, and then they're like, I can't believe this is my A-plot, and then another character will enter the scene and just go, well, Kimmy, this is my B-plot. They feel like they only come together to talk about their storylines, and really that's it. And I know what you're saying. Lily, this show is too goofy and wacky. There's no time for that. I'm not asking for entire scenes like this. I'm not asking for the stories to come to a halt for things like this. So many scenes in this show could have gone the exact same way, just with maybe a different blocking to start and maybe a few small ad-libbed lines. I haven't brought up Glee at all, but I'm going to, because there was a moment in season 5 that always stuck with me that kind of really made me like one of the weirder pairings of the later seasons. At one point in season 5, Artie is on the train or whatever it is alone, and he is a wheelchair user. He is paralyzed from, I believe, the waist down. So somebody steals his backpack and he cannot run after them to get it. So he's just stuck. Rachel, at one point in this episode, realizes that she'd been kind of selfish, and she told Artie that she'd start riding with him on the subway or the train or whatever, so he doesn't get mugged again. Later on in that same episode, Rachel and Artie are on the L train, and the scene starts with just them sitting together, and Rachel kind of goes like, she's like, you know, I'm taking a little nap right now, just like with her eyes closed.
Take a little nap right now.
Oh my god, it's him.
And I don't know if that was in the script. I don't care. And it's just like this small moment where it's clear that they were kind of enjoying each other's company in silence. Glee is insane, but there's always room for small moments like this. I don't know why it stuck with me. I don't even like Rachel that much, and I really don't like Lea Michele. But this moment of like these two characters we don't interact that often, just sort of quietly spending time together, I don't know, it just makes it feel real. I get the sense that they're okay spending time together even if the plot isn't asking them to, and that's kind of what I want. I want the sense that they would be together even if there wasn't a story. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. I think this show needed some sort of heart. I needed some sort of moment where I believe that these people spend time together outside of the things that the audience can see. I want a scene to start in the middle of an unrelated conversation between two characters. I want them to reference something completely unrelated in the middle of a conversation that hasn't actually been shown in an episode. I want to see them get distracted together. I want some sort of vibe that these characters have something in common. I want to see them laugh together. There's none of that. There's just, I need you to make me a better person, Kimmy. Again, maybe this is just a me thing. Maybe it just isn't a show for me. But this is my video, and this is what I'm asking for from a show. And if you watched the show and felt something was off but couldn't figure out why, maybe this helped pinpoint what the show was missing for you. For me, it was missing some sort of heart and soul, some sort of small moment that tells me what their friendship is like when there's no story happening. The closest thing I could think of is a scene from season 4 where Kimmy mentions how she can have fun with Titus while respecting his space, and they do a little dance together. This is honestly great. No questions asked. We're doing something silly together. I can't think of another moment like that. Clearly, we cannot look to character relationships to make this show grounded. So where can we look? We can't look anywhere. This show is supposed to be character-driven. If the characters aren't grounded, their relationships are hollow. All of it is nonsense. This show is grounded in absolutely nothing then. There's no rhyme or reason to the stories or events. It's weird, annoying chaos, and nothing anchors it. I think one of the reasons why the main premise is annoying is because it's an underground bunker cult with some creepy man who kidnapped 4 women. That has dark implications that are never really addressed. This show hangs off a premise that I find somehow simultaneously dark and weirdly goofy. It's like, yeah, she was kidnapped and that was totally traumatizing, but also they just like walked around the tunnels and were gaslit a few times and told they were garbage women. These are bad things, but all of that is played for laughs. Every scene that takes place in the bunker is absurd, and the dialogue is written in like a comical tone. It is supposed to be funny, right? I don't know. It's written in a way where Tina Fey's writing is like not making me laugh, but I get the sense that it was supposed to make me laugh. You know what I mean? Was the bunker a traumatic hell, or was it funny? As I watched and rewatched episodes while editing this video, I realized that there actually was an application every now and then that there was physical and even sexual abuse in the bunker, and I believe that. But it is never really given the gravity I think it deserves. Nothing that happens in the bunker is given any sort of emotional gravity. It always feels like they're afraid to let the audience think about the actual horror of what Kimmy, Cindy, Donna Maria, and Gretchen went through, probably because it's a sitcom. That kind of begs the question of why this had to be a sitcom, or why this sitcom had to be about this particular premise. I know I said, like, it's not given any sort of emotional gravity, and it's like, but didn't they mention how Kimmy has trauma and stuff like that, and, like, she has, like, flashbacks? She does, but these flashbacks are often, like, depicted in a very vague way. It'll be like, a man grabs Kimmy and she freaks out. A man kisses Kimmy and she freaks out. And I can see where that's coming from, but this has really dark implications that we don't really, like, get time to think about in this show. It is played off in a sort of silly way, and it just, like, I don't know. I think that the act of Kimmy and these other women being trapped underground for 15 years, held against their will, and psychologically manipulated is traumatizing enough. I believe that that's enough to harm anybody mentally and affect their relationships with others for years to come. I also understand that showing any physical abuse in the bunker would be unbelievably dark for a comedy like this. It just would feel so out of place. I just think it's a strange choice because, as far as I know, Tina Fey and Robert Carlock were not forced to make this show's central premise so dark. If depicting the horrific events that are common among cults of this nature feels out of place in a sitcom, why is this sitcom's central story about a woman who survived 15 years in an underground polygamous cult? If you're like, that stuff's too dark to show in this show, then it's too dark for a sitcom. If you're afraid of talking about that, then you should be afraid of the entire premise. It should not be the central premise of your show. And I don't really think that stuff needs to be, like, depicted in a sitcom. And if Tina Fey doesn't think so either, then it shouldn't be the premise of a sitcom.
This show wants to be floaty and ridiculous and lighthearted and silly. It wants insane humor and weird jokes and surrealism. It wants a cast of goofy weirdos, none of whom seem to be in the slightest bit like a real human being any of us have ever met. It also wants to be about Kimmy's bunker trauma, mommy issues, cult recovery, and gentrification all at the same time. This show can't stop for a minute and shift gears for more serious things because it just mixes the serious things all into a big melting pot of bad jokes. These things don't mesh at all. This show is a tonal, not total, tonal as in of the tone, mess. Every single main character is so stupid and self-involved that they can't even have a real conversation with each other. Not a single one of them has an ounce of self-awareness. They don't make a single rational decision, and not a single story in this show feels like something that could happen to a real human being in the real world, which is frustrating when the story is very character-driven. This show struggles to make me take any of it seriously because I don't care about the characters. There is never a moment where I become attached to them as human beings. It does a bad job at almost everything it's trying to be. It is not a good story. The characters aren't likable or real. There's no rhyme or reason to the events happening. It's too afraid to address what its own premise sets up and implies. And worst of all, it is not fucking funny. Everything this show has to say is about as meaningful as a greeting card with a message pre-printed on it. I don't think this show is the worst thing ever. Nor do I really think it's all that offensive, mostly because as a white woman, I don't really think I'm in a place to tell others what they should be offended by. So although I might criticize parts of the show as being insensitive, you're absolutely welcome to disagree or just not care at all. Nor do I think you shouldn't watch it. For me, it was an unbelievably frustrating slog, and I don't recommend forcing yourself to watch a show you don't like that much and take notes. I've become pretty annoyed with this show while making this video, but I did watch all 4 seasons several years ago, and it made no impression on me in the years since. And that is one of the worst reviews I could possibly give a piece of media. It just feels like something that there was no demand for. Nobody's asking for a sitcom about cult trauma because cult trauma isn't really funny. Nobody was ever asking for a sitcom about cult trauma. I got baby. Anyways, that was the last 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know. What month is it? August. Great. I started in April of months of my life that I spent working on this video off and on, mostly off because I got distracted doing editing work that I was actually being paid for. Thank you, Kian, very cool. And then at some point, I remembered I liked crocheting again, so I made, hold on, where is it? It's so cute. So I made this. If this video is bad, it's because I don't think it will be seen by many people, but if you liked watching me talk about the show I hated, maybe subscribe. Don't? I think I'll talk about Skin Wars or something next. Maybe I'll take a nap for 4 months. Bye! The problem with this lamp is that it's activated by touch. So if I grab it like this and try to hold it, it does that. So I have to oh, I breathed in dust.